I've been in the trucking industry for 17 years. My name is Marcus Webb, and I've driven on nearly every highway between Seattle and Miami, logging over 2 million miles. I thought I'd seen everything the road had to offer. Absolutely everything. But I was wrong. This incident occurred in late October 2018. I was 41 years old, divorced for 3 years and living in a studio apartment in Portland, Oregon, that I hardly ever saw. My real home was the road. My 2015 Freightliner Cascadia truck was more familiar to me than any building. I knew every click, every creak, every quirk of that machine. The run started out normal enough. I picked up the load on a Thursday afternoon from a distribution center just outside Portland. Industrial fasteners and hardware supplies, headed for a manufacturing plant in Boise, Idaho. The paperwork said I had to deliver by Saturday morning, which gave me plenty of time. The route was straightforward. I-84 east through the Columbia River Gorge, then continue into Idaho. I'd done this run maybe 40 times before. I loaded up around 3 in the afternoon. The sky was overcast, typical Oregon autumn weather. There was a bite in the air that promised rain. I did my pre-trip inspection, checking lights, brakes, tires, all the usual stuff. Everything looked good. The load was secured properly, weight was distributed right, and I had a full tank of diesel. My dispatcher, a woman named Carol, who I'd worked with for 6 years, called me just as I was climbing into the cab. "Marcus, you got the manifest?" "Yeah, Carol, I'm all set." "Weather's supposed to get rough tonight. There's a system moving in from the coast. Might want to keep an eye on that." "Will do. I'll call you when I'm halfway." "Drive safe." I pulled out of the lot around 3:30 p.m. Traffic through Portland was its usual mess, but I didn't mind. I had my thermos of coffee, a bag of sunflower seeds, and my playlist of old country music. Merle Haggard was singing about Mama Tried as I merged onto I-84. The first couple hours were unremarkable. I passed through the gorge as the sun started getting lower in the sky. The Columbia River was gray and choppy on my right. The cliffs rose up on both sides of the highway, covered in patches of autumn color. A few other trucks passed me going the opposite direction. I recognized one driver, a guy named Pete, who I'd met at a truck stop in Baker City a few months back. We exchanged a flash of our high beams in greeting. By 6 o'clock, I was past Hood River. The sun had set, and the darkness came on quick. The overcast sky meant no stars, no moon, just blackness beyond my headlights. The temperature dropped too. My dashboard thermometer read 42 degrees. Traffic thinned out considerably. This stretch of I-84 wasn't heavily traveled at night, especially on a Thursday. I'd see another vehicle maybe every 10 or 15 minutes, mostly other trucks, occasionally a car. The road curved and climbed gradually as I moved away from the river. Around 7:30, I stopped at a rest area near Cascade Locks to use the bathroom and grab a quick bite. The rest area was nearly empty. Just one RV, parked in the far corner, and a sedan with Oregon plates. The family area was deserted. Fallen leaves scattered across the pavement, scraping and tumbling in the wind. I used the restroom, stretched my legs, ate a sandwich I'd packed that morning. The wind had picked up. I could hear it moaning through the trees surrounding the rest area. The temperature had dropped another 5 degrees. I checked my phone. Still had decent signal. Nothing important in my messages. My ex-wife had sent a text about our daughter's basketball game. I'd missed it, of course. I always miss them. I climbed back in the cab and got back on the road. The coffee was working its magic. I felt alert, focused. The white lines of the highway unwound in front of me like thread from a spool. My headlights cut through the darkness. The broken center line flickered past in a hypnotic rhythm. The radio played classic rock. I sang along to songs I'd heard 1,000 times. The cabin was warm and comfortable. This was the part of the job I actually liked. Just me, the truck, and the open road. No drama, no complications, no one asking me for anything. Around 9 o'clock, I passed the Dalles. The city lights glowed in my mirrors for a while, then faded to nothing as I continued east. The landscape flattened out somewhat. I was getting into the drier country east of the Cascades. The trees became sparse. Sagebrush and grassland rolled away into the darkness beyond the reach of my headlights. I called Carol like I'd promised. I'm making good time. Should be in Boise way before the deadline. Good. Weather still okay? A little windy, but nothing serious. All right, keep me posted. The hours rolled by. 10 o'clock came and went. 11. The road was almost empty now. I'd see another vehicle maybe every half hour. The white lines kept coming. My eyes started feeling heavy around 11:30, so I cracked the window and let some cold air blast my face. I grabbed another coffee from my cooler. The radio started getting static. I fiddled with it, trying to find a clearer station. All I could pull in was some talk radio station, then that faded too. I switched to my phone, plugged into the aux cord, and played my own music. Just before midnight, I saw something that made me slow down. Up ahead, maybe half a mile, there were flashing lights. Orange and yellow, the kind you see at road construction sites. My first thought was road work, but it seemed odd for this time of night. I eased off the accelerator, dropping my speed from 70 to about 50. As I got closer, I could see it wasn't construction. It was worse. There were 2 police cruisers parked at angles across both lanes, their light bars flashing. Behind them, I could see what looked like the aftermath of an accident. A car was on its side in the median. Another vehicle's front end was crumpled. There were more flashing lights, an ambulance, a fire truck. A state trooper stood in the road, directing traffic. He had one of those illuminated wands, waving vehicles to the right. He motioned for me to pull over onto the shoulder before the accident scene. I brought my rig to a stop, engine idling. The trooper walked up to my door. I rolled down the window. Cold air flooded the cab. "Evening, officer. What happened?" He was a young guy, maybe late 20s, with a tight jaw and serious eyes. "Multi-vehicle accident about 20 minutes ago. Road's going to be closed for a while. We've got injuries. Need to clear the wreckage." "How long you think?" "At least 3-4 hours, maybe more. This is a bad one." He paused, glanced back at the scene. "You're going to have to take a detour." "What's the detour?" He pulled out a small flashlight and pointed it at a spot in the darkness to the right of the highway. "About a quarter mile up, there's an exit. Route 197 south. Take that for about 15 miles, then you'll hit Route 14. Take that east. It'll bring you back to I-84 past all this mess. Adds maybe 40 minutes to your trip." I frowned. "Route 197? I don't think I've ever taken that." "It's there. It's marked. Detour signs are already up." He stepped back. "Drive careful. Road might be a little rough in spots." "Thanks, officer." He nodded and moved to wave down the next vehicle coming up behind me. I put the truck in gear and started rolling forward slowly. Sure enough, about a quarter mile ahead, I saw an exit ramp I'd never noticed before. There was a big orange detour sign with an arrow pointing down the ramp. I checked my GPS. The screen showed I-84 extending ahead, but there was no exit here on the map. That wasn't unusual. GPS databases weren't always updated with every backroad. I'd been in this situation before. You follow the official detour signs, not the GPS. I put on my turn signal and guided the truck down the exit ramp. At the bottom, there was a stop sign and another detour arrow pointing left. The sign said Route 7 South. I turned left. The road was narrow, just 2 lanes, no shoulder to speak of. Pavement was rougher than the interstate, lots of little potholes and cracks. My headlights showed pine trees crowding close on both sides. No streetlights, no other lights of any kind. Just darkness and trees. I checked the odometer. The trooper said 15 miles to Route 14. I could handle that. I'd be back on I-84 in less than an hour, and I'd still make my delivery with time to spare. That's what I told myself as I drove deeper into the darkness. The road curved gently through the forest. My headlights swept across tree trunks and underbrush. The white fog line on the right was faded, barely visible in places. The yellow center line was fresher but still worn. This wasn't a well-maintained road, but it wasn't the worst I'd driven on either. I kept my speed around 45. The road had some curves and dips that I couldn't see until I was on top of them. The suspension creaked as the truck bounced over uneven pavement. The load shifted slightly in the trailer, making that settling sound that always made me check my mirrors. About 3 miles in, I passed another detour sign. It was smaller than the first one, mounted on a wooden post at the side of the road. The reflective arrow pointed straight ahead. At least I was going the right way. The forest seemed to get denser. The trees pressed in closer to the road. Every now and then I'd catch reflective eyes in the darkness. Deer or elk, probably, watching from the tree line. The wind had picked up. I could see branches swaying in my headlights. 5 miles. 6 miles. No other vehicles. No buildings. No driveways. No side roads. Just the narrow 2-lane cutting through endless forest. My music kept playing, but it felt wrong somehow. Too cheerful for the isolation. I turned it off. The only sounds were the engine's diesel rumble and the hiss of tires on rough pavement. I tried the radio again. Static on every station. I wasn't surprised. I was probably in a dead zone, too far from any transmitter, surrounded by hills and trees. I'd get signal back once I hit Route 14. 7 miles, 8 miles. I checked the GPS again. The screen still showed I-84, with my blue location dot floating in what appeared to be empty space off the highway. Rerouting, it kept saying in that calm female voice. Make a U-turn when possible. I'm following the damn detour, I muttered. The GPS didn't care. It wanted me back on the interstate. 9 miles, 10 miles. I should be getting close to Route 14. The trees started to thin out a little. The road straightened. I could see further ahead now, maybe a 1/4 mile of empty pavement before it disappeared into another curve. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. My clock on the dashboard said 12:47 a.m. But I could swear I'd been driving this detour for at least 30 minutes, maybe 40. I'd turned onto it just after midnight. The math didn't quite add up, but I shrugged it off. Time plays tricks on you when you're tired and driving through darkness. 11 miles, 12 miles. Still no Route 14. The trooper said 15 miles, so I had a few to go yet. But something was bothering me. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. Then I realized I hadn't seen another detour sign since that one 3 miles back. For an official detour, they usually marked it pretty regularly. I kept driving. The forest returned, thick and dark. The road started climbing slightly, elevation gain that I could feel in the engine. The temperature gauge stayed steady, but I could hear the turbo working a little harder. 13 miles. 14 miles. My headlights caught something reflective up ahead. I sat up straighter, hoping to see the Route 14 junction. As I got closer, I saw it was another detour sign. Just an arrow pointing forward. Still on the right track. But something about that sign bothered me. I slowed down as I passed it, looking at it in my mirror. It looked exactly like the sign from 3 miles back. Same size, same placement, same wooden post. The reflective material had the same pattern of scratches and wear. 15 miles. No Route 14. The road kept going straight into the forest. I slowed to about 35, looking for any kind of junction or intersection. Nothing. Just trees and pavement and darkness. I stopped the truck in the middle of the road, put it in neutral, set the brake. Sat there with the engine idling, trying to think. The trooper had been clear. 15 miles to Route 14. I'd just driven 15 miles. Where was it? I grabbed my phone. No signal. That wasn't unusual out here, but it was frustrating. I looked at the GPS again. Still showing me off the interstate. Still telling me to make a U-turn. No help there. Okay, I thought. Maybe I miscounted. Maybe it was further than 15 miles. I'd keep going. The detour had to connect eventually. I couldn't be the only one they'd sent this way. Other drivers would be coming through. I released the brake and started driving again. 16 miles, 17 miles. The road surface got worse, more potholes, larger cracks. I had to slow down to 30 to avoid jarring the load too badly. 18 miles. Another detour sign, same as the others, arrow pointing forward. As I passed it, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. That sign looked exactly like the previous one. And I mean exactly. Same scratches, same pattern of wear on the reflective surface, same slight tilt to the left on its wooden post. I told myself I was being paranoid. Mass-produced signs all look similar. The lighting and angles were playing tricks, but I didn't really believe that. 19 miles. 20 miles. The road crested a hill and started descending. Through the trees on the right, I caught a glimpse of something that might have been a valley or clearing, but it was too dark to be sure. That's when I saw the rest area. It appeared suddenly on the right side of the road. A small, paved lot with a single picnic shelter and what looked like an outhouse. There was no sign announcing it, no facilities listed, just this little pull-off in the middle of nowhere. What made me really notice it, though, was the car. It was parked under the picnic shelter, a dark sedan, maybe dark blue or black. Hard to tell in the poor lighting. There was a single light on a pole, but it was dim and flickering, casting uncertain shadows. I slowed way down, almost to a crawl, looking at that car. The windows were dark. I couldn't tell if anyone was inside. The car was just sitting there, perfectly still, in the middle of this isolated rest area on a road that supposedly led to Route 14, but didn't seem to actually go anywhere. Every instinct told me to keep driving. This wasn't my problem. Someone probably broke down and called for help, was waiting for a tow truck. Nothing strange about that, but something was strange. The car looked wrong somehow. The way it sat, the angle, the complete stillness. And why would anyone park under the shelter instead of in one of the regular parking spots? I drove past slowly. In my mirror, I watched the dim light and the dark car recede into the distance. The whole scene gave me a sick feeling in my stomach. 21 miles. 22 miles. The road seemed to go on forever. I checked my fuel gauge, still 3/4 of a tank. Not worried about running out, but definitely worried about where this road was actually taking me. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it quickly, hoping for a signal, but it was just a notification. My music app had stopped playing because there was no connectivity. The screen showed no bars, no service. I set the phone down and gripped the steering wheel tighter. The smart thing would be to turn around, head back to I-84, and explain to the trooper that the detour didn't work. But I'd come 22 miles. Turning around meant driving 22 miles back, then however long to clear the accident. I could lose 3 or 4 hours. No, I'd keep going. The road had to connect eventually. 23 miles. 24 miles. The forest changed character. The trees looked different somehow, taller, darker, more densely packed. Or maybe it was just my imagination. The darkness seemed thicker, like my headlights weren't penetrating as far as they should. 25 miles. Another detour sign, same as before, arrow pointing forward. I stopped the truck again, sat there, staring at that sign. The reflective material caught my headlights, glowing orange and white. I could see every scratch, every imperfection in the surface. I'd seen this exact sign before. Not one like it. This one. These exact scratches. This exact pattern. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. I'd been driving for 25 miles, but the odometer on this road had been moving oddly. Sometimes a mile would pass quickly. Sometimes it seemed to take forever. And the clock, I looked at it now, read 1:02 a.m. I'd been on this detour for just over an hour. That was about right for 25 miles at reduced speed. So, why did it feel like I'd been driving for much longer? I shook my head, trying to clear it. Fatigue was getting to me, that was all. I was tired, it was late, and I was on an unfamiliar road. My perception was off. I started driving again, but this time I paid closer attention to everything. The mile markers on my odometer. The clock. The landscape around me. 26 miles. The road curved sharply to the left. I followed it around. The headlights swept across the trees and caught something that made me hit the brakes. On the left side of the road, barely visible through the trees, was a building, or what was left of one. It looked like it might have been a gas station once, or a general store. The roof had partially collapsed. The walls were dark and weathered, no lights, no signs of life. I stared at it as I slowly rolled past. There was something deeply unsettling about seeing any kind of structure out here. It meant people had been here once. They'd built something, operated a business, and then they'd left. The building stood there in the darkness, slowly rotting, forgotten. 27 miles, 28 miles. The road straightened out again, long and straight, disappearing into a point in the distance. I accelerated slightly, eager to cover ground. That's when my headlights caught something in the road ahead. At first, I thought it was an animal. My foot went to the brake automatically, but as I got closer, I saw it wasn't an animal. It was a traffic cone. A single orange traffic cone, sitting in the middle of the right lane. I swerved slightly to pass it, watching it in my mirror as it disappeared behind me. What was a traffic cone doing out here? There was no construction, no work crews, nothing. 29 miles. Another traffic cone, then another. They were spaced about 100 yards apart, each one sitting in the middle of the right lane. 30 miles. The cones continued. I counted them, one every 100 yards or so, creating a line down the road. Leading somewhere? Warning of something? I had no idea. The cones stopped after about a mile, just ended. The last one sat at the edge of a sharp curve. I followed the curve around to the right, and that's when I saw lights up ahead. My heart leaped. Finally, civilization. Route 14, or a town or something. I pressed the accelerator, eager to reach those lights. As I got closer, my excitement died. The lights weren't from a town or an intersection. They were from another rest area, bigger than the first one, with multiple picnic shelters and what looked like actual bathroom facilities. And there was another car, different from the first one. This was a pickup truck, parked at an odd angle near one of the shelters. I slowed to a crawl as I approached. The rest area was lit by several pole lights, all of them flickering and dim, just like the first location. The pickup truck's driver's side door was open. I could see that clearly. The door just hung open, the interior light on. But I didn't see anyone. No people, no movement, nothing. I stopped the truck completely, sitting there in the road with my engine idling, staring at that rest area. Every fiber of my being screamed that something was wrong. This whole situation was wrong. The endless road, the identical signs, the abandoned vehicles. I should check on that truck. If someone was hurt or in trouble, I should help. But I didn't move. I just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring. After maybe 2 minutes, I put the truck in gear and drove on. I didn't stop. Whatever was happening in that rest area, I wanted no part of it. 32 miles, 33 miles. The road began to climb again, a steady uphill grade. The engine worked harder. I checked the temperature gauge. Still good. Fuel at just over half a tank now. My hands were sweating. I realized I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I forced myself to relax, took a deep breath. "This is just a detour," I said out loud. "It's just a longer detour than they said. You're going to hit Route 14 any minute now." But I didn't believe it. Not anymore. Something was very wrong with this road. The climb continued for what felt like miles. The road switched back through the forest, gaining elevation steadily. My ears popped from the pressure change. The trees, pressing in on both sides, seemed to lean over the road, branches creating a tunnel of darkness that my headlights barely penetrated. 35 miles. 36 miles. 37. I kept expecting to crest the hill and see something. A valley, a town, Route 14. But the road just kept climbing. The curves became sharper. I had to slow down to 25 miles per hour to safely navigate them. The clock read 1:34 a.m. I'd been on this detour for an hour and a half. My original route to Boise should have had me somewhere near Ontario by now. Instead, I was God knows where, climbing a mountain on a road that wasn't supposed to exist. 38 miles. I passed another detour sign, same as all the others. Arrow pointing forward, mocking me. I grabbed my phone again, knowing it was useless but unable to stop myself. No signal. The GPS was frozen, still showing that blue dot floating off I-84. I tried to pull up my maps, but without connectivity, they wouldn't load. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat in frustration. That's when the radio crackled to life. I jumped, startled by the sudden noise. It was just static at first, that hissing white noise. But then, through the static, I heard something. A voice. 11. Proceed with caution. Road conditions. The voice faded back into static. I reached for the tuning dial, trying to find the station clearly. More static. Then, detour in effect. Follow posted signs. It was a man's voice, calm and professional, like a traffic report. But there was something off about it. The words were slightly wrong, the phrasing awkward. Emergency vehicles responding. Maintain safe distance. The static grew louder, drowning out the voice. I turned the volume up, pressing the seek button to find the station, but I couldn't lock onto it. The voice would fade in for a second, say a few words, then disappear back into the noise. Route 197, exercise extreme caution. Okay, so I was still on Route 197. The broadcast was talking about this road. That meant someone knew about this detour, was monitoring it. That should have been reassuring. But it wasn't. Because every few seconds the voice would repeat the same phrases. Not exactly the same, the words varied slightly, but the same general information delivered in the same tone. 11, road conditions, emergency vehicles, over and over. Like a loop, like a recording that had been spliced together. I turned the radio off. The silence was better than that creepy, repetitive broadcast. 39 miles. 40 miles. The road finally crested the hill. I accelerated slightly, relieved to be going downhill now. The slope was gradual at first, then steeper. I had to use my brakes to keep the speed reasonable. The last thing I needed was to lose control on this nightmare road. As I descended, I started to see something through the trees ahead. Lights. Lots of them. My heart rate quickened. Finally, a town. Had to be. 41 miles. 42 miles. The lights grew brighter. I could make out individual points now. Street lights maybe, or building lights. 43 miles. The road leveled out and straightened. The trees pulled back from the roadside. And I saw what the lights were. It wasn't a town, it was a truck stop, a big one, with multiple fuel islands, a large parking lot, a building that looked like it housed a restaurant and store. Lights blazed everywhere. Over the pumps, in the lot, on the building, along the road frontage. But something about it looked wrong. The lights were too bright, too white, fluorescent and harsh. And there was no one there. Not a single vehicle in the lot. Not a person in sight. Just this massive, fully lit facility sitting empty in the middle of nowhere. I slowed to about 15 miles per hour as I approached. There was an entrance on the right, a wide driveway leading to the fuel islands. A big sign over the entrance read Interstate Fuel in red letters. I almost pulled in. I needed fuel eventually, and this was a truck stop. But my instinct screamed at me not to. The place looked operational, all those lights, but it felt abandoned, like a movie set or a facade. I drove past slowly, looking at everything. The fuel islands were clean, the pumps looked new, the building's windows were dark despite all the exterior lights. I couldn't see inside. There was a door marked Entrance that appeared to be closed. No prices posted on the pumps, no vehicles in the lot, no trash in the garbage cans, no signs of life whatsoever. As I passed the far end of the property, I looked in my passenger side mirror. The truck stop blazed with light behind me, an island of artificial brightness in the darkness. Then, as I watched, all the lights went out at once. Complete darkness, like someone had flipped a master switch. The truck stop disappeared, swallowed by the night. I felt my skin crawl. I pressed the accelerator, not caring any more about rough pavement or curves. I needed to put distance between me and that place. 44 miles. 45 miles. The road entered the forest again, and I was almost grateful for it. At least trees were normal, natural. My hands were shaking. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I forced myself to breathe normally to calm down. "You're tired," I said out loud. "You're seeing things. That truck stop probably just closed. Automatic lights on a timer." But I knew that wasn't right. No truck stop closes. They're open 24 hours, that's the whole point. 46 miles. 47 miles. I checked the clock again. 1:51 a.m. The numbers glowed red on the dashboard. I stared at them, trying to remember what time I'd started this detour. Just after midnight. Call it 12:05. So I'd been driving for almost 2 hours. 47 miles in 2 hours. That averaged out to about 23 miles per hour. That made sense given the road conditions and the hill. So why did it feel like I'd been on this road for much, much longer? 48 miles. Another detour sign. Arrow forward. I didn't even slow down anymore. What was the point? 49 miles. 50 miles. I was 50 miles from where I'd started this detour. 50 miles on a route that was supposed to be 15, and still no Route 14, no I-84, no civilization except that creepy truck stop with its lights that turned off all at once. My fuel gauge read just under half a tank. I had maybe 200 miles of range left, probably less given the conditions. If this road didn't connect soon, I was going to have a real problem. 51 miles. 52 miles. The forest began to thin out again. The road leveled off, running straight through what looked like open country. No trees now, just low scrub brush and grass on both sides. The land was flat, stretching away into darkness. And that's when I saw the first sign of another vehicle. Taillights, red dots in the darkness ahead. Someone else was on this road. Relief flooded through me. I wasn't alone. There was another driver, probably as lost and confused as I was, but still, another human being. We could figure this out together. I accelerated, trying to catch up. The taillights were maybe half a mile ahead. They seemed to be moving at about the same speed I was, maybe 40 miles per hour. 53 miles. I was gaining on them. Quarter mile now. I could make out the vehicle better. It looked like a car, maybe a sedan. The brake lights flashed occasionally as the driver navigated the road. 54 miles. I was right behind them now, maybe 200 feet back. Close enough to see it was definitely a sedan, dark colored. The license plate was too dirty to read in my headlights. I flashed my high beams a couple of times, trying to signal the driver. "Hey, I'm here too, let's figure out what's going on." The car didn't respond, just kept driving at the same steady pace. I got closer, within 100 feet. Close enough to see there was only one person in the car, the driver. I couldn't make out any details, just a silhouette against the dashboard lights. I flashed my high beams again. "Come on, acknowledge me." Nothing. 55 miles. We drove in a convoy now, the sedan ahead, my truck behind. The road continued straight across the flatland. I could see further ahead than I had in the forest, and there was nothing. Just emptiness. Then the sedan's brake lights came on. Not just a tap, a full stop. The car slowed rapidly. I slowed too, matching its speed. What was happening? Had the driver seen something? The car came to a complete stop in the middle of the road. I stopped about 50 feet behind it, leaving plenty of space. My headlights illuminated the rear of the car. I could see the exhaust puffing out in small clouds, the engine still running. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. The car just sat there, not moving. I tapped my horn. 2 short beeps. "Hey, you okay?" The car didn't move. I put my truck in neutral, set the parking brake. I was about to open my door to walk up and check on the driver when the car lurched forward. Not a normal acceleration. It shot forward like it had been launched, going from 0 to what must have been 60 or 70 in seconds. The engine roared, way too loud for a normal sedan. The taillights shrank rapidly as the car raced away down the road. Within 10 seconds, it was gone. Just darkness ahead, like the car had never been there. I sat frozen, trying to process what I'd just seen. Cars don't accelerate like that. Not sedans. That was sports car speed, maybe faster. I released the parking brake and started driving again. Slowly now. Maybe 25 miles per hour. My heart was pounding. Everything about this was wrong. The road, the signs, the truck stop, and now, this car that drove like it was jet-powered. 56 miles, 57 miles. No sign of the sedan. It had completely disappeared. The road started to curve again. Gentle bends to the left and right. The scrubland continued on both sides, broken occasionally by a lonely tree or a tumble of rocks. 58 miles. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it, shocked. There was a signal. Just 1 bar, but it was something. I tried to call Carol, my dispatcher. The call connected, rang once, then dropped. No signal again. I tried 911, same thing. 1 ring, then nothing. I wanted to scream in frustration. Instead, I gripped the wheel tighter and kept driving. 59 miles, 60 miles. I'd driven 60 miles on a detour that was supposed to be 15. I was somewhere in Oregon, or maybe Idaho. on a road that didn't appear on any map, having just seen a car perform physically impossible acceleration. None of this made sense. None of it was possible. But it was happening. The rational part of my brain tried to come up with explanations. Maybe I'd made a wrong turn somewhere and didn't realize it. Maybe the trooper at the accident gave me bad information. Maybe this was some alternate route that GPS databases didn't know about yet. But the rational explanations felt hollow. They didn't account for the identical detour signs, or the truck stoplights turning off simultaneously, or that sedan. 61 miles. 62 miles. The road began to climb again, a gentle, upward slope. The scrubland gave way to scattered trees, then more dense forest. That's when I saw the rest area again. My blood turned to ice. It was the same rest area from before, the one with the car parked under the picnic shelter. Same layout, same dim flickering light, same dark sedan in the same spot. I'd driven 60 miles and somehow I was back where I'd been before. No, that was impossible. I'd been driving straight, hadn't turned around. This had to be a different rest area that just looked similar. But as I drove past, I saw the license plate on the sedan. I couldn't read the numbers in the poor light, but I could see they were Oregon plates with a distinctive scratch across the middle. The same car, the exact same car. I kept driving, my mind reeling. Was I going in circles? How? The road had been straight for miles. No turns, no loops, unless the road curved so gradually that I didn't notice. Unless what felt like straight was actually a massive, gentle circle. 63 miles. 64 miles. I watched for any sign that I was repeating route, any landmark I recognized, but in the darkness, everything looked the same. Trees, and pavement and night. 65 miles. Another detour sign, forward arrow. 66 miles. 67 miles. The clock read 2:23 a.m. I'd been on this detour for 2 hours and 18 minutes. My fuel gauge was just above a quarter tank now. I had maybe 100 miles left, probably less. What happened when I ran out of fuel? Would I sit on the side of this impossible road until morning? What if morning never came? What if this road existed in some pocket where the normal rules didn't apply? I shook my head violently. "Stop it," I said out loud. "You're tired, you're panicking. There's a rational explanation." But I couldn't think of one. 68 miles. 69 miles. The road descended from the hill into a valley. I could see the land drop away on both sides, though I couldn't see the bottom. Just darkness below, like I was driving along the edge of an abyss. 70 miles. And then, finally, I saw something different. Up ahead, maybe half a mile, there was a light, not a street light or building light. This was different, orange and flickering like fire. I slowed down, approaching cautiously. As I got closer, I could see it was a barrel fire. Someone had a metal drum set up at the side of the road with a fire burning inside it. The flames licked up into the night, casting dancing shadows on the pavement. And standing next to the fire was a person. I brought my truck to a complete stop about 50 feet from the barrel. The person was illuminated by the firelight, a man wearing what looked like a road worker's vest and hard hat. He was just standing there, hands in his pockets, facing my truck. I sat there with the engine idling, trying to decide what to do. This was the first actual human being I'd seen since the trooper back at the accident. This person might have answers. Might know where this road actually went. Or might be something else entirely. Something that just looked like a person. I shook that thought away. I was losing it. This was a road worker, probably on break, warming himself by a fire. Normal, human, real. I rolled down my window and leaned out. "Hey, you know where Route 14 is?" The man didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there staring at my truck. "I'm looking for Route 14, I called out louder. "Or any way back to I-84. Still nothing. The man's face was in shadow, the firelight behind him. I couldn't make out his features, just a dark silhouette against the flames. I put the truck in gear and rolled forward slowly, coming alongside the barrel fire. Now I was maybe 20 feet from the man, close enough to see him better. He was wearing a road worker's vest, like I'd thought, but it was old, weathered. The reflective strips faded and cracked. The hard hat looked ancient, like something from the 1970s, and the man himself, his face was wrong. Not deformed or monstrous, just wrong. The proportions were slightly off, eyes a bit too far apart, mouth a bit too wide, like someone who'd seen a picture of a human face but never actually met one had tried to recreate it. "Where does this road go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled, or tried to. His mouth stretched, showing teeth. Too many teeth. "Forward," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "The detour goes forward. Where does it end?" "When you get there." I felt my hands shaking on the wheel. "I've been driving for 70 miles. The trooper said it was 15 miles to Route 14. "Forward," the man repeated. Same, flat tone. "Follow the signs." "The signs don't go anywhere." The man tilted his head, like a dog hearing a strange sound. "The detour is in effect. Emergency vehicles responding. Maintain safe distance." Those were the exact words from the radio broadcast. Exact same phrasing, exact same odd cadence. "Who are you?" I asked. "A worker. I help with the detour." "How long have you been here?" The man's too wide smile grew wider. "I maintain the road. I keep the signs pointing forward. I help drivers find their way." "Find their way where?" "Forward." I'd heard enough. I started to roll up my window, ready to drive on, but the man spoke again. "You pass the rest areas," he said. "You should have stopped." My blood ran cold. "Why?" "To rest. That's what they're for. To stop driving forward. I need to get to Boise. I have a delivery." The man's head tilted the other way. "The load can wait. The road is long. You should rest." "No, I'm finding a way off this road." "There is no off," the man said. His smile was gone now. His face was blank, empty. "There is only forward. That's what the signs say. That's where the detour goes." I punched the accelerator. The truck lurched forward and I left the man and his barrel fire behind. In my mirror, I watched him stand motionless as I drove away, the flames casting long shadows across the pavement. 71 miles, 72 miles. My hands were trembling. I could barely hold the steering wheel steady. That wasn't a person, I knew that now. I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't human. The face, the voice, the things it said, all wrong, all impossible. But I'd seen it, talked to it. It was as real as the road I was driving on. 73 miles, 74 miles. The road continued through darkness. Trees on both sides now, pressing close again. The clock read 2:47 a.m. My fuel gauge dipped below a quarter tank. I was going to run out soon if I didn't find a way off this road. 75 miles. Another detour sign. Forward arrow. Always forward. I started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone whose mind was fraying at the edges, who'd been pushed beyond the point of rational thought. "Forward," I said, mimicking the road worker's flat voice. "Always forward, because that's what the signs say." 76 miles, 77 miles. The radio crackled again. That same broadcast, the same looping phrases. 11, road conditions, emergency vehicles, Route 197, proceed with caution. I turned it off. I didn't want to hear it anymore. Didn't want to think about what it meant. 78 miles. The road started to look familiar. Or maybe I was imagining it. Everything looked the same in the darkness. Pavement and trees and emptiness. 79 miles. 80 miles. I'd driven 80 miles on a 15-mile detour. I had maybe 50 miles of fuel left, and I still had no idea where this road actually went. The clock ticked over to 3 o'clock a.m. exactly. And that's when the road ended. Not gradually. Not with a warning. It just ended. My headlights caught the edge, a wall of dirt and rocks, blocking the road completely. Like someone had just decided the pavement stopped here and filled in the rest with an earthen berm. I slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded, tires screeching. I stopped maybe 10 feet from the barrier. I sat there breathing hard, staring at the wall of dirt. It stretched across both lanes about 8 feet high. Completely impassable. This was it, the end of the detour. But it wasn't Route 14. It wasn't I-84. It was just nothing. A dead end. I looked in my mirrors. The road stretched back into darkness behind me. Forward was blocked. I'd have to turn around, drive back those 80 miles. Back past the road worker with the wrong face. Back past the rest areas with the abandoned vehicles. Back past the truck stop that turned its lights off all at once. The thought filled me with dread so deep I could barely breathe. But I had no choice. I couldn't sit here. I had to move. I started the arduous process of turning my truck around on the narrow road. It took multiple back and forths, the trailer swinging wide, the road barely wide enough. The whole time I kept expecting to see something in my mirrors. The road worker, the sedan, something. Finally, I had the truck pointed back the way I'd come. I started driving, west now, instead of east, back toward I-84. 80 miles to go. The clock read 3:12 a.m. I drove in silence. No radio, no music. Just the engine and my own ragged breathing. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. I watched the mile counter on my odometer tick down. 77 miles to go. 76, 75. The road looked different going this direction. Or maybe it was my imagination. The trees seemed darker, the curves sharper. 74 miles. 73 miles. I passed a detour sign, but the arrow was different this time. It pointed behind me, back toward the dead end. That didn't make sense, but nothing made sense anymore. 72 miles, 71 miles. I should have reached the barrel fire by now, the spot where the road worker had been standing. But there was nothing there, just empty pavement. No barrel, no fire, no man. 70 miles. The rest area should be coming up soon. The one with the car under the picnic shelter. I was dreading seeing it again, but I also needed to know if it was still there. 69 miles, 68 miles. But the rest area never appeared. The road was just forest and pavement. No rest area, no car, nothing. I felt a scream building in my throat. Where was everything? I'd passed these landmarks on the way out. They should be here on the way back, unless this wasn't the same road. Unless turning around had put me on some different version of Route 197. 67 miles. 66 miles. The fuel gauge dropped below the quarter tank mark. The low fuel warning light came on, glowing orange on my dashboard. 65 miles. My phone buzzed again. I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it. 2 bars of signal. 2 bars. I tried calling Carol. The phone rang, once, twice, 3 times. Please, I whispered. Please pick up. 4 rings, 5, voicemail. Carol, it's Marcus. I don't know where I am. I took a detour off I-84 and I've been driving for hours and I can't find my way back. If you get this, I'm on Route 197, or I was on Route 197. I don't know anymore. Just, if you don't hear from me, tell someone. Tell the police. I'm on this road and I can't get off. I hung up, looked at my phone. The signal bars flickered, then disappeared. No service. 64 miles, 63 miles. The road began to climb. That hill again. Or a different hill. I couldn't tell anymore. 62 miles. 61 miles. The clock read 3:51 a.m. I'd been driving back for almost 40 minutes. At this rate, I'd reach the start of the detour around 5:30 a.m. If I made it that far, if I didn't run out of fuel, if the road actually led back to where I'd started. 60 miles. I tried the radio again. Maybe I could pick up a real station, something with actual news or music, something normal. Static. Then that voice again. Emergency detour in effect. Follow posted signs. Road conditions may vary. I turned it off immediately. I couldn't listen to that anymore. Couldn't bear hearing those flat, looping phrases. 59 miles. 58 miles. The truck stop should be coming up. That massive, well-lit facility that went dark all at once. I needed to see it, needed confirmation that it had been real. 57 miles. But there was no truck stop. Just trees and darkness like always. The spot where it should have been was empty forest. I started laughing again. That same, unhinged laugh from before. Of course, I said to the empty cab. Of course it's not there, because none of this is real. I'm having a breakdown. Or I fell asleep at the wheel and I'm dreaming. Or I died in an accident and this is hell. 56 miles. 55 miles. The fuel warning light was more insistent now, beeping every few seconds. I had maybe 30 miles left in the tank, maybe less. I was going to run out of fuel on this impossible road. I was going to sit in my truck in the darkness until... What, dawn? Would dawn even come here? 54 miles. 53 miles. I should start seeing the flat scrubland soon, the area where I'd encountered the sedan that shot forward like a rocket. 52 miles. The trees thinned. The land flattened out. This was it, the scrubland section. I scanned the road ahead, half expecting to see taillights, but there was nothing. Just empty road stretching into darkness. 51 miles. 50 miles. Halfway back. Or maybe not. Maybe the road was different going this direction. Maybe it was longer, or shorter, or infinite. My eyes were getting heavy. I'd been driving for almost 5 hours now, most of it in a state of high stress and fear. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind bone-deep exhaustion. I cracked the window, letting cold air blast my face. I dug my fingernails into my palms. Anything to stay awake. 49 miles. 48 miles. The road entered forest again. The trees loomed on both sides, branches reaching over the pavement like grasping hands. 47 miles. That's when I saw the taillights again. The sedan was back. Or a sedan was back. It was maybe a quarter mile ahead, driving at a steady pace. I should have been terrified. I should have kept my distance, remembered what happened last time. But I was desperate. Desperate for any sign of another person, even one that might not be entirely human. I accelerated, closing the gap. 46 miles. 45 miles. I got close enough to see it was definitely a sedan, dark-colored. Could have been the same one from before, could have been different. I couldn't tell. I flashed my high beams. The car didn't respond, just kept driving. I got closer, 100 feet, 50 feet, close enough to see the silhouette of the driver. Then the car's brake lights came on, full stop, just like before. I slowed down, matching its speed. Here we go again, I thought. The car stopped completely in the middle of the road. I stopped 50 feet behind it, just like before. I waited. 30 seconds, a minute. Then I did something stupid. I opened my door and stepped out of the truck. The night air was freezing. I could see my breath in clouds. My legs were stiff from sitting for so long. I walked slowly toward the sedan, my boots crunching on the pavement. "Hey," I called out. "I need help. I've been on this road for hours. Do you know how to get back to I-84? The car sat silent. Engine running, exhaust puffing. I got closer. 20 feet, 10 feet. Close enough to see through the driver's side window. There was no one inside. The driver's seat was empty. So was the passenger seat. The whole car was empty, but the engine was running, the headlights were on. I reached for the door handle, some part of my brain screaming at me not to touch it. But I did anyway. I pulled the handle, the door opened. The interior looked normal. Regular car seats, dashboard, steering wheel, keys in the ignition. A coffee cup in the cup holder. A phone, charging cable plugged into the outlet, like someone had just stepped out for a moment. Except there was nowhere to step out to. We were in the middle of an empty road in the middle of nowhere. I looked in the back seat. Nothing. Checked the floor. Nothing. Then I noticed something on the passenger seat. A piece of paper, folded in half. I picked it up, unfolded it. Written in neat handwriting, it said, "Don't stop at the rest areas. Don't talk to the workers. Just keep driving forward. The detour ends when you run out of fuel. Then you become part of it." My hands started shaking. I dropped the paper, backed away from the car. Then, just like before, the car shot forward. 0 to 60 in seconds, engine roaring. It raced down the road and disappeared into the darkness. I ran back to my truck, climbed in, slammed the door, locked it. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. 44 miles to go. The fuel light beeped insistently. I started driving again. Faster now, pushing the truck to 50, 55, 60 miles per hour. I didn't care about the rough pavement or the curves. I just needed to cover distance. 43 miles, 42 miles, 41. The forest flew past in a blur. The white line in the center of the road flickered by in a strobe effect. 40 miles, 39, 38. "Come on," I muttered. "Come on, come on, come on." 37 miles, 36. The fuel gauge was almost on E. The beeping was constant now. 35 miles. I saw lights ahead. My heart leaped. Was it the end? Was it I-84? 34 miles. The lights grew brighter. Multiple lights, flashing orange and yellow. 33 miles. I could make out shapes now. Vehicles, police cars, an ambulance. 32 miles. It was the accident scene, the original accident that had started this whole nightmare. I was back. I slowed as I approached, my hands gripping the wheel so tight they hurt. There was the state trooper, the same one from before, standing in the road with his illuminated wand. He waved me to the right, directing me back onto I-84. I followed his instructions, steering my truck onto the on-ramp. The pavement changed, became smooth again. The familiar feel of the interstate. I was back on I-84. The detour was over. I looked at my odometer. I'd driven exactly 113.7 miles since leaving this spot. The fuel gauge read E, the warning beeping frantically. The clock said 5:47 a.m. I'd been on that detour for 5 hours and 42 minutes. I pulled onto the shoulder just past the accident scene, too shaken to continue. I sat there with the engine idling, staring at the dashboard. My phone buzzed. Signal was back. Multiple missed calls from Carol. A text from her, "Where are you? Call me immediately." I tried to call her back, but my hands were shaking too badly to hold the phone. I set it down, leaned my head against the steering wheel. A tap on my window made me jump. I looked up to see a different state trooper standing there. I rolled down the window. "You okay, sir? You look like you've seen a ghost." Yeah, I'm okay. Just tired. That detour was longer than I expected." The trooper frowned. "What detour?" "The one you set up for the accident, Route 197. The trooper's frown deepened. "Sir, we didn't set up any detour. The accident cleared about 3 hours ago. Traffic's been flowing normally since then." I stared at him. "But the other trooper, he told me to take Route 197. It was supposed to be 15 miles. "There is no Route 197 in this area," the trooper said slowly. "Are you sure you're okay? Have you been drinking?" No, look, never mind. I'm fine, just tired. I'll pull off at the next rest area and get some sleep." The trooper looked doubtful, but he nodded. "Okay, drive safe." He walked away. I sat there for another minute, then pulled back onto the interstate. The sun was rising now. The sky was turning pink and orange in the east. Normal dawn on a normal highway. I drove to Boise, delivered my load 6 hours late, made up an excuse about engine trouble. Got written up anyway. That was 3 years ago. I still drive this route sometimes. I-84 through Oregon into Idaho. And every time I pass that spot, that stretch of highway where the accident was, I look for an exit to Route 197. It's never there. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving alone through the darkness, my radio will start crackling. And through the static, I'll hear that voice. "Detour in effect. Follow posted signs. Emergency vehicles responding." And I'll remember that note in the sedan. The one that said the detour ends when you run out of fuel. That you become part of it. I drove 113.7 miles that night. My fuel tank on that truck held 150 gallons. At the fuel efficiency I was getting, I should have run out at about 120 miles. I came very, very close. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had run out. If I'd coasted to a stop somewhere on that endless road, unable to go forward or back. Would I still be there? Standing in a road worker's vest next to a barrel fire, telling confused drivers that the detour goes forward? Or would I be in one of those cars parked at a rest area, waiting for someone to find the note I'd left? I don't know. And I don't want to find out. But every time I see a detour sign now, even on normal roads in daylight, I feel that same cold dread in my stomach. Because part of me knows the truth that I can't accept. Some detours don't lead back to where you started. Some detours only go one direction. Forward, always forward. I still drive truck, I still make the Portland to Boise run, but I never drive it at night anymore. I schedule my loads for daytime arrival, even if it means less money. My dispatcher, Carol, asked me about it once. "You used to prefer night runs. What changed?" I told her I was getting older, needed better sleep. She seemed to accept that. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying. I'm afraid that one night I'll see those flashing lights again, that accident scene that shouldn't exist, that trooper who will tell me to take a detour that isn't on any map, and this time I won't have enough fuel to make it back. The note said the detour ends when you run out of fuel, when you become part of it. I was 6 miles away from that. 6 miles from becoming something that stands by the road and smiles with too many teeth. 6 miles from becoming a warning that no one will heed. I tell myself I was lucky. that I escaped, that it was just some bizarre, isolated experience that will never happen again. But late at night, when I can't sleep, I think about that road, Route 197, the road that doesn't exist. And I wonder how many drivers are still on it, how many didn't make it back, how many are still driving forward, burning their last drops of fuel, telling themselves they'll find Route 14 just around the next curve. How many have already run out, already stopped, already become part of the detour they tried so desperately to escape. I check truck stop forums sometimes, looking for stories similar to mine. Drivers who took strange detours, who drove roads that weren't on maps. I found a few, not many, but enough to know I'm not alone. Enough to know that whatever that road was, it's still out there, still pulling in drivers, still feeding. One post stuck with me. A driver in Wyoming who took a detour off I-80, drove for hours on an unmarked road, eventually found his way back. But when he checked his fuel log, he'd burned twice as much diesel as the distance should have required. Like the road was longer than the miles indicated. Like distance worked differently there. Another driver in Nevada. His GPS stopped working during a detour. When it came back online, it showed he'd traveled over 200 miles in a direction he swore he hadn't gone. They're out there. These roads. These impossible detours that appear when you need them least and disappear when you search for them later. I don't know what they are. I don't know why they exist. I don't know if they're some natural phenomenon, or something deliberately created, or something that's always been there, hiding in the spaces between normal roads. What I know is this. If you're driving late at night and you see an accident scene with a detour sign pointing to a road you don't recognize, think very carefully before you take it. Check your fuel. Check it twice. Because you're going to need every drop to get back. And if you do take that detour, if you find yourself on a dark road with identical signs and a nagging sense that something is fundamentally wrong, do not stop. Not at rest areas. Not for people standing by fires. Not for abandoned cars. Just keep driving forward. Watch your fuel gauge, and pray you make it back before it hits E. Because once you run out, well, then you're part of the detour too. Then you're the one standing by the fire, wearing an old roadworker's vest, smiling with too many teeth, telling the next terrified driver that the detour only goes forward. Forever forward. Into the endless dark. My name is David Brennan. I'm 47 years old, and I've been driving long-haul trucks for 22 years. Before that, I spent 6 years in the Army as a transport specialist. Driving is what I know. It's what I'm good at. It's the only thing that's ever made sense to me. This happened in March of 2016. Early spring, when winter still had its claws in the northern states but was starting to loosen its grip. I was hauling a load of industrial equipment from Minneapolis, Minnesota to Rapid City, South Dakota. Mostly machine parts, fabricated steel components, heavy stuff. Total weight came in at around 78,000 pounds, well within legal limits but heavy enough that I felt it when the wind pushed against the trailer. I picked up the load on a Tuesday morning, March 15th. The sky was overcast, temperature in the low 40s. There was still dirty snow piled up in the corners of the loading dock, remnants of a storm from the week before. The guys at the warehouse were their usual efficient selves, had me loaded and paperwork signed in under 2 hours. My truck was a 2014 Peterbilt 579, burgundy and chrome, with just over 400,000 miles on it. I'd bought it used 3 years earlier, and it had been good to me. Regular maintenance, no major breakdowns. I knew every sound it made, every vibration, every quirk. When you spend 60, 70 hours a week in a vehicle, it becomes an extension of yourself. The route was straightforward. I-94 west out of Minneapolis, through the western Minnesota prairie, across the border into South Dakota, then continue on I-90 west toward Rapid City. Total distance about 550 miles. I planned to make it in one shot, maybe stop for fuel and food once, arrive late evening. I pulled out of the warehouse at 10:30 a.m. Traffic through the Twin Cities was moderate for a Tuesday. I made my way through the industrial areas, merged onto I-94, and settled into the rhythm of the road. The cab was warm, coffee was hot, and I had a full playlist of audiobooks ready to go. I was listening to a thriller novel, something about a detective tracking a serial killer. Entertaining enough to keep my mind occupied, but not so gripping that I'd lose focus on driving. The first couple hours were unremarkable. I passed through St. Cloud around noon, stopped at a truck stop just past there to use the restroom and grab a sandwich. The place was busy, lot full of trucks, drivers coming and going. I recognized a couple guys I'd seen at other stops over the years. We nodded to each other, that silent acknowledgement of shared profession. Back on the road by 12:30 p.m. The landscape gradually changed from suburban sprawl to farmland. Flat fields stretching to the horizon, most still brown and dormant from winter. A few patches of snow lingered in ditches and shaded areas. The sky remained overcast, a uniform gray that seemed to press down on the land. I crossed into South Dakota around 2:15 p.m. There's a welcome center right at the border, but I didn't stop. I had good momentum going and I wanted to maintain it. The wind had picked up, coming from the northwest, strong enough that I had to make constant small corrections to keep the truck tracking straight. I merged from I-94 onto I-90 west just past the border. This was the main stretch now. I-90 would take me all the way to Rapid City. The highway cut through prairie land, long and straight for miles at a time, occasionally curving around a hill or valley. Traffic was light. I'd see another vehicle every few minutes, but it wasn't crowded. This was typical for a Tuesday afternoon in March on this stretch of interstate. Around 3:00 p.m., I noticed the sky getting darker. Not just the gray overcast from earlier. This was different. Storm clouds building from the west, darker and more ominous. I checked the weather on my phone at the next rest area. Severe weather watch for western South Dakota. Possible heavy snow, high winds, reduced visibility. Expected to move in around evening. I did some quick math. I was making good time. If the weather held for another 3 or 4 hours, I'd be in Rapid City before the worst of it hit. I could deliver the load, find a motel, and ride out the storm comfortably. I pushed on, the audiobook played. The white lines passed beneath my wheels. The landscape rolled by, unchanging in its vast emptiness. By 4 p.m. I was past Chamberlain, heading into the emptier parts of South Dakota. The towns got smaller and farther apart out here. The land got drier, more desolate. This was the beginning of the Great Plains proper, where the Midwest transitioned into the West. The wind was really picking up now. I could feel it buffeting the trailer, pushing me toward the shoulder. I gripped the wheel tighter, stayed focused. This wasn't my first time driving in wind, not by a long shot. You learn to read it, anticipate the gusts, make the corrections before the truck starts to drift. Around 4:30 p.m., I saw the first snowflakes. Just a few at first, swirling in the wind. Within 10 minutes it was coming down steadily. Not a blizzard yet, but heading that way. Visibility dropped from miles to maybe half a mile. I turned on my headlights, slowed my speed from 70 to 60. The highway was still clear, no accumulation yet, but I knew that could change fast. I'd driven through enough prairie snowstorms to know how quickly conditions could deteriorate. I was about 20 miles east of Murdo when I saw the signs. Big, orange electronic message boards, the kind the highway department uses for emergencies. Winter storm warning. Reduced visibility ahead. Extreme caution advised. I slowed to 55. The snow was coming down harder now, thick flakes that stuck to my windshield before the wipers swept them away. The wind howled around the cab. I could barely see the taillights of a car maybe 300 feet ahead of me. That's when I saw the police lights. They were on the shoulder, flashing blue and red through the snow. As I got closer, I could make out 2 state police cruisers parked at angles, blocking the right lane. An officer stood in the road, wearing a reflective vest over his uniform, waving a flashlight. I slowed down, pulling into the left lane as I approached. The officer pointed firmly at me, then gestured toward the shoulder. He wanted me to stop. I eased the truck onto the shoulder about 50 feet past the cruisers, put it in neutral, set the parking brake. Through my mirror, I watched the officer walk toward me. He was bundled up against the cold, hood up, moving with purpose against the wind. I rolled down my window as he reached my door. A blast of frigid air and snow hit my face. "Afternoon, officer. What's the situation?" He was a young guy, maybe early 30s, with a thin face and serious eyes. Snow was already accumulating on his shoulders and hood. Highways closed about 15 miles ahead, jackknifed semi blocking both lanes, multiple vehicle pileup, nobody hurt bad, but the roads blocked solid. How long until it's clear? Could be hours. This weather's not helping. We've got wreckers coming, but it's slow going. He pulled out a small laminated map from inside his vest. "You're going to have to take a detour." I frowned. A detour? Out here? There wasn't much out here. Just prairie and the occasional ranch road. But the officer was already pointing at the map. "There's a county road about a mile ahead on the right. County Road 47. Take that south for about 30 miles, then pick up State Route 183 west. That'll bring you back to I-90 about 40 miles down the road, past the accident site." I looked at where he was pointing. The map showed a network of smaller roads branching off from the interstate. County roads, state routes, the kind of backroads that connected small towns and ranches. That's going to add what, an hour to my trip? Probably. But it's better than sitting here waiting. The pileup is bad, could take 4 or 5 hours to clear. I thought about it. An extra hour versus potentially 4 or 5 hours of sitting on the shoulder in a snowstorm. Easy choice. All right, County Road 47, then Route 183 west. That's right. Road should be passable. Might be some snow on it, but nothing you can't handle. He stepped back from my door. "Drive careful. Weather's supposed to get worse before it gets better." "Will do, thanks, officer." He nodded and turned back toward his cruiser, head down against the wind and snow. I rolled up my window, grateful for the warmth of the cab. I released the parking brake and eased back onto the highway. The snow was coming down even harder now, visibility down to maybe a quarter mile. My wipers were working overtime, but snow kept building up at the edges of the windshield. I watched my odometer. 1 mile. There, on the right, a green highway sign barely visible through the snow. County Road 47. 1 mile. The exit came up quickly. It was a simple off-ramp, curving down to a stop sign at a T intersection. The county road ran perpendicular to the interstate, heading south into what looked like empty prairie. I made the turn and started down the exit ramp. Behind me, I-90 disappeared into the snow. Ahead was the county road, 2 lanes of blacktop cutting through white emptiness. That's when I noticed the first odd thing. The road looked fresh. I mean really fresh. The blacktop was dark and clean. The yellow center line was bright and unworn. It didn't look like a rural county road that had seen years of weather and farm equipment. It looked like it had been paved yesterday, but then maybe they'd recently resurfaced it. Road maintenance happened, even out here in the middle of nowhere. I turned south onto County Road 47 and started driving into the storm. The county road was narrower than the interstate, just 2 lanes with no shoulder to speak of. Fields spread out on both sides, though I could barely see them through the snow. Every now and then I'd catch a glimpse of a fence line or a distant structure, but mostly it was just white emptiness. The snow was accumulating on the road now. Not much yet, maybe an inch, but enough that I had to slow down to 45 miles per hour. My tires crunched through it, leaving tracks behind me. In my mirrors, I could see those tracks filling in almost immediately as fresh snow fell. I checked the clock on my dashboard. 4:52 p.m. The officer said 30 miles to Route 183. At this speed, that would take me about 40 minutes. Then another however many miles on Route 183 back to I-90. Figure another hour total, probably a bit more in this weather. I'd still make Rapid City tonight, just later than planned. No big deal. I'd delivered loads in worse conditions than this. The road ran straight for about 5 miles, then started curving gently, following the contours of the land. I passed a farmhouse set back from the road, dark windows, no lights on. Then nothing for another few miles, just fields and fence posts and falling snow. Around the 10-mile mark, I noticed something strange. I hadn't seen another vehicle since I'd left I-90. Not a single car, truck, or farm vehicle. On a main detour route, you'd expect to see other drivers who'd been diverted, but the road was completely empty. More than that, the snow on the road showed only my tracks. No other tire marks, no indication that anyone else had driven this way recently. Maybe I was the first one diverted. Maybe the accident had just happened, and the police were only now starting to redirect traffic. That made sense, except the snow had been falling for a while now. If this road was regularly used, even just by local traffic, there should be some sign of it. Tire tracks from earlier in the day before the snow got heavy. But the road looked completely untouched except for my passing. I shook off the thought. I was overthinking it. Rural roads in South Dakota could go hours without seeing a vehicle, especially in bad weather. People stayed home when storms hit. 15 miles, 20 miles. The road continued through the prairie, curving and dipping with the landscape. The snow fell steadily, reducing visibility to a couple 100 feet. My headlights cut through the white curtain, illuminating the road immediately ahead and not much else. I tried the radio, looking for weather updates. Static on most stations. I finally found one coming in weekly, sounded like a local station, playing country music. But the signal faded in and out, mixing with static. Then the music stopped and a voice came on. Male, professional sounding, like a news announcer. Emergency detour in effect on Interstate 90. All westbound traffic being diverted to County Road 47. Drivers should expect delays. Good, I thought. At least I'm on the right road. The detour was official, being announced on the radio, but then the announcer said something that made me frown. County Road 47 to State Route 183, approximately 45 miles, severe weather conditions. Extreme caution advised. 45 miles. The officer had said 30 miles to Route 183. Had I misheard him? The broadcast continued, but the static was getting worse. I lost the station entirely, the radio fading to white noise. I tried scanning for other stations but couldn't find anything clear. 25 miles. I should be getting close to Route 183 now. I watched for signs, for any indication of an upcoming intersection. The landscape had changed slightly. The fields gave way to more rugged terrain. Hills and gullies, outcroppings of rock. The road climbed and descended more dramatically, winding through this rougher country. 28 miles, 29 miles. Still no sign of Route 183. 30 miles. I slowed down, looking for the intersection. But the road just kept going, straight into the falling snow. No junction, no signs, nothing. I checked my GPS. The screen showed me somewhere off the main highways, a blue dot on what appeared to be a county road. But the map database didn't show Route 183 anywhere near my location. In fact, it didn't show any major roads nearby at all. GPS databases could be outdated, especially for rural areas. I'd learned not to rely on them completely. The official detour signs and directions from a state trooper were more reliable than any GPS. I kept driving, 31 miles, 32 miles. The road began to climb a long, gradual hill. The snow was getting deeper now, 3 or 4 inches accumulated on the pavement. My truck handled it fine, 4-wheel drive, good weight in the trailer, but I had to keep my speed down to 35. At the crest of the hill, the road leveled out, and I could see further ahead. Or I could have, if not for the snow. But even through the white curtain, I could tell the road continued straight, disappearing into the distance. No intersections, no turnoffs, nothing. 35 miles, 40 miles. I was well past where Route 183 should have been. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Had I missed it somehow? Had I zoned out and driven past without noticing? No, impossible. I'd been watching carefully, looking for signs. You don't miss an entire highway intersection, even in a snowstorm, unless the officer had given me bad directions, or I'd misunderstood, or the radio announcement had been wrong. I decided to keep going a bit further. Maybe the distances were off. Maybe Route 183 was another 5 or 10 miles ahead. 42 miles. 43 miles. The road descended from the hill into a valley. Through the snow, I could make out the darker shapes of trees, a wooded area clustered in the bottom of the valley. The road curved down toward it. As I entered the trees, the snow thinned slightly. The branches overhead caught some of the falling snow, creating a partial canopy. I could see better here, maybe 300 feet ahead instead of 200. That's when I saw the gas station. It appeared suddenly on the right side of the road, an old-style filling station with 2 pumps under a corrugated metal awning. There was a small building behind the pumps, dark and weathered. A faded sign hung from a post, but I couldn't make out what it said through the snow. The place looked abandoned. The pumps were ancient, the kind with analog dials instead of digital displays. The building's windows were dark, covered with grime or boards, hard to tell which. But there was a car parked there, a dark sedan sitting next to one of the pumps. I slowed down, almost to a crawl, staring at that car. It was modern, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Why would someone park at an abandoned gas station in the middle of a snowstorm? As I passed, I looked in my mirrors. The car sat there, motionless. No exhaust from the tailpipe, no lights, no movement. Just sitting there like it had been parked and forgotten. The gas station disappeared behind me as the road curved back into open country. But the image of that car stuck in my mind. Something about it felt wrong. Not threatening exactly, just off, out of place. 45 miles. 46 miles. I tried my phone, no signal. That wasn't surprising out here, but it would have been nice to call my dispatcher, let someone know I was running late because of the detour. The road began to climb again, switchbacking up another hill. The snow was really piling up now, 5 or 6 inches deep. My truck plowed through it, engine working hard, but I could feel the weight of the trailer dragging. 48 miles. 49 miles. At 50 miles, I stopped the truck in the middle of the road, put it in neutral, set the brake, sat there with the engine idling, trying to think through the situation. I'd driven 50 miles on a detour that was supposed to be 30 miles. I hadn't seen Route 183. I hadn't seen any other roads at all, in fact. Just this one county road, heading south through increasingly empty prairie. The smart thing would be to turn around, head back to I-90, take my chances with the accident scene. Maybe it was clear by now. But turning around a 78,000-pound truck on a narrow, snow-covered road wasn't simple. And I'd come 50 miles. Turning back meant driving 50 miles in the other direction, then however far to get back to where I'd started. That could add 3 hours to my trip. No, I'd keep going. The detour had to connect eventually. The officer had given me specific directions. There had to be a reason. I released the brake and started driving again. 51 miles. 52 miles. The radio crackled back to life. That same voice from before, cutting through the static. All traffic on County Road 47 advised to proceed with caution. Road conditions deteriorating. Severe weather warning in effect. Then a different voice, female this time. State Route 183 junction, approximately 12 miles ahead. Drivers should reduce speed and watch for signs. 12 miles ahead? I'd already driven 52 miles. That would put Route 183 at 64 miles total, more than double what the officer had told me. But at least it confirmed the junction was ahead. I wasn't on a road to nowhere, I just had to keep going. The broadcast faded back to static. I turned the radio off. 55 miles, 60 miles. The landscape changed again. The hills flattened out into high plains. The trees disappeared. Just flat, featureless prairie stretching in all directions, barely visible through the snow. And that's when I noticed the tire tracks. They were faint, already filling with snow, but I could see them in my headlights. Other tire tracks running alongside mine. Proof that another vehicle had come this way. Relief washed over me. I wasn't alone out here. Someone else had taken this detour probably not long ago. I followed the tracks, feeling less anxious now. If someone else had come through, that meant the road was passable, that it led somewhere. But then, after about 2 miles, the tracks ended. Not gradually. They just stopped, like the vehicle had simply vanished in mid-drive. I slowed down, staring at where the tracks ended. They didn't turn off the road. There was nowhere to turn. They didn't get covered by deeper snow. The accumulation was uniform. They just stopped. The last clear impression of tire treads, then nothing but smooth snow ahead. My heart started beating faster. That wasn't possible. Vehicles don't disappear. They don't leave tracks that end in the middle of a road, unless the vehicle turned around. Maybe whoever made those tracks had realized this road went nowhere and headed back. But there were no signs of a 3-point turn or a U-turn, just tracks that ran alongside the road for 2 miles and then ceased to exist. 64 miles. I watched for Route 183, but there was nothing. Just the county road, stretching endlessly ahead, 65 miles. 66 miles. The radio crackled again. More static, then that male voice. Emergency detour, County Road 47, State Route 183 junction, approximately 12 miles ahead. The same announcement as before, word for word. The exact same phrasing, the exact same inflection, like a recording playing on a loop. I turned the radio off, a chill running through me that had nothing to do with the temperature. 70 miles. 75 miles. The snow started to let up. The heavy, blinding fall lessened to moderate flurries. Visibility improved to maybe half a mile. I could see the road ahead more clearly now. It was completely straight. Absolutely, perfectly straight, running from my current position to the horizon without the slightest curve or deviation. And there was nothing else. No buildings, no fence lines, no power lines, no trees. just the road and the prairie and the falling snow. 80 miles. I'd driven 80 miles on a 30-mile detour. I was somewhere in South Dakota, probably, but I had no idea where. My GPS had stopped updating, frozen on that same blue dot in the middle of nowhere. I should have turned around miles ago. I knew that. But I'd committed to this course, and some stubborn part of me refused to give up. The junction had to be ahead. It had to be. 85 miles. 90 miles. The sun was setting now, though I could barely tell through the overcast sky. The light just gradually faded from gray to darker gray to near black. I'd been driving for hours. My coffee was cold. My audiobook had stopped playing when I lost the phone signal. It was just me and the truck and the endless road. 95 miles. That's when I saw the police car. The police car was parked on the shoulder about a quarter-mile ahead, facing my direction. Its light bar was on, flashing blue and red through the snowy twilight. As I got closer, I could make out details. It was a South Dakota State Police cruiser, same as the ones I'd seen at the beginning of this detour. Relief flooded through me. An officer, someone who could tell me where I was, what had happened, how to get back on track. I slowed down as I approached, pulling over onto the shoulder about 30 feet in front of the cruiser. I set my parking brake and opened my door, stepping down into snow that was now almost a foot deep. The cold hit me like a physical blow. The temperature had dropped significantly. My breath came out in clouds. I pulled my coat tighter and trudged toward the police car. The engine was running, exhaust puffing from the tailpipe. The lights flashed rhythmically. But I couldn't see anyone inside. The windows were tinted dark, and the fading light made it impossible to see through them. I approached the driver's side and knocked on the window. "Hello? Officer?" No response. The window didn't roll down. I knocked again, louder. "I need some help. I'm lost. I was told to take this detour, but..." The window rolled down. But there was no one in the driver's seat. The interior was empty. I stepped back, my heart pounding. The window had rolled down on its own. Or... no, someone had to have pressed the button, but there was no one there. I leaned closer, peering into the empty cruiser. The keys were in the ignition. The radio was on, crackling with static. The computer mounted on the dashboard was lit up, displaying something I couldn't quite read from this angle. "Hello?" I called out, looking around. "Is anyone here?" The prairie stretched empty in all directions. The wind moaned across the snow. There was no one. I should have left then. Should have walked back to my truck and driven away as fast as conditions would allow. But I couldn't. I needed answers. I needed to understand what was happening. I reached through the open window and grabbed the radio handset. Pressed the transmit button. This is a civilian on County Road 47. I'm at a state police vehicle. I need assistance. Can anyone hear me?" Static, then a voice, different from the ones I'd heard on the radio before. Older, rougher. "County Road 47. Son, there's no County Road 47 in this sector." I felt my stomach drop. "What? I'm on it right now. I was directed here by a state trooper at a pile-up on I-90. "There's no pile-up on I-90. Highway's clear, has been all day." "That's not possible. I was there. I saw the officer. He gave me directions. What's your 20? I don't know. I'm somewhere on County Road 47. I've been driving for 95 miles. A long pause, static. Then, 95 miles? "Son, the longest county road in this part of the state is maybe 20 miles. I'm telling you, I've been driving for 95 miles. I was told to take County Road 47 south to State Route 183, then west back to I-90. Another pause, more static. When the voice came back, it sounded concerned. There's no State Route 183 in South Dakota. Are you all right? Have you been drinking? No, I'm stone sober. I'm a commercial driver. I was given directions by one of your officers. Can you describe this officer? I tried to remember. Young guy, early 30s maybe, thin face. He was at the pile-up scene wearing a reflective vest. What did the cruiser number say? They all have numbers on the side. I hadn't looked. I'd been focused on the officer, on the weather, on getting moving again. I didn't see it. What time did this happen? Around 4:45, maybe 4:50 p.m. And what time is it now? I looked at my watch. The numbers glowed in the dimming light. 8:37 p.m. But that couldn't be right. I'd been driving for a while, but not 4 hours. It had felt like maybe 2 hours, 2.5 at most. It's 8:37, I said. So you've been driving this road for almost 4 hours? I wanted to say no, wanted to say he was wrong, that my watch was wrong. But the evidence was there, the darkness, the exhaustion I was starting to feel, the empty coffee cups on my passenger seat. I guess so, I said quietly. Okay, listen to me. I want you to tell me exactly where you are. Look around. Describe what you see. I'm on a 2-lane road. County Road 47, according to the sign I saw when I turned onto it. There's snow, maybe a foot deep. The road runs straight as far as I can see. There's nothing around. No buildings, no lights, nothing. Just prairie. And you're at one of our cruisers? Yes, it's running, lights are on, but there's no one in it. A very long pause. I could hear other voices in the background, muffled conversation. Son, I'm going to need you to check something for me. Look at the license plate on that cruiser. Tell me the number. I walked around to the back of the car. The plate was covered in snow. I brushed it off with my gloved hand. The numbers and letters came into focus. But something about them looked wrong. The format was right for South Dakota, but the numbers themselves seemed to shimmer, like they were printed on something reflective that caught the light strangely. I read them off into the radio. SHP 2471. Silence on the other end. Then, can you repeat that? SHP 2471. More muffled voices. Then the older voice came back, and now it sounded strained. That vehicle was decommissioned 12 years ago. It was in an accident, totaled. That plate number shouldn't exist. My hand was shaking as I held the radio. That's not possible. I'm looking right at it. I believe you're looking at something, but I don't think it's one of our cruisers. Not a current one. Then what is it? I don't know. But I need you to get away from it, get back in your truck and... The radio cut out. Just like that, mid-sentence. Static, then nothing. I pressed the transmit button. Hello? Are you there? Nothing. I tried again. Hello? Can anyone hear me? The radio was dead. Or the frequency was dead, or something. I hung the handset back on its clip and stepped away from the cruiser. The lights continued to flash. The engine kept running. But it felt wrong now, like a prop in a stage play rather than a real vehicle. I walked back to my truck as quickly as the snow would allow. Climbed into the cab, slammed the door, locked it, started the engine and got the heat going full blast. My hands were shaking. Not from cold, from something else. Fear, maybe, or the creeping realization that something was very, very wrong with this situation. I looked at my logbook. It was a legal requirement. I had to record my driving hours, my rest periods, my locations. I'd been filling it out mechanically all day, barely paying attention. I flipped to today's page. The last entry I'd written was at 4:52 p.m. Exited I-90 onto County Road 47 at mile marker 192. Detour due to accident. The line after that was blank. I hadn't filled anything else in. But according to my watch, it was now 8:42 p.m. I'd been driving for nearly 4 hours without logging a single mile, a single location, a single checkpoint. That wasn't like me. I was meticulous about my logs. The DOT could pull me over any time and check them. Missing hours could mean fines, suspension, losing my CDL. I tried to remember the last 4 hours. Driving through snow, watching the miles tick by, looking for Route 183, the abandoned gas station, the tire tracks that ended, the radio broadcasts. It was all there in my memory, but it felt distant somehow. Like it had happened to someone else, and I'd only heard about it. I looked in my rearview mirror. The police cruiser sat behind me, lights still flashing. As I watched, the lights went out. All at once, the car went dark and silent. I put my truck in gear and drove away as fast as the conditions would allow. 96 miles. 97 miles. The road continued straight. The snow fell lighter now, just scattered flurries. The full darkness of night had settled over the prairie. I checked my fuel gauge. Just over half a tank. I'd burned through a lot of fuel driving through snow, engine working hard. At this rate, I had maybe 200 miles left before I'd need to refuel. 100 miles. 105 miles. My phone suddenly buzzed. I grabbed it, hope flaring. A signal, just 1 bar, but it was something. I had 7 missed calls, all from my dispatcher. 3 voicemails, multiple texts. I tried calling back, but the call wouldn't go through. I tried again, nothing. I pulled up the texts. The most recent one, from 20 minutes ago, read, "Where are you? You were supposed to deliver 3 hours ago. Client is furious. Call me." 3 hours ago? But I wasn't supposed to arrive until late evening. I checked the delivery paperwork. Estimated arrival, 7 p.m. It was now 9:03 p.m. according to my phone. I was 2 hours late, and I had no idea where I was or how to get to where I needed to be. I tried to type a response, but the signal dropped before I could send it. 110 miles. 115 miles. The straight road finally began to curve. Gentle bends at first, then sharper turns as it navigated around hills I could barely see in the darkness. And then, ahead in the distance, I saw lights. Real lights. Multiple points of brightness cutting through the dark. A town, it had to be. I accelerated, my heart racing. Civilization. People. Answers. 118 miles. The lights grew brighter. I could make out individual buildings now, streetlights, the glow of windows. 120 miles. I entered the outskirts of the town. Small houses lined the road, most with lights on. I saw cars parked in driveways. A gas station on the left, open and lit up. A small grocery store. A diner. I pulled into the gas station, parked at the pumps, and practically fell out of the cab. My legs were stiff from hours of sitting. The cold air bit at my face, but I didn't care. I was somewhere real. I went inside the station. A young woman stood behind the counter reading something on her phone. She looked up as I entered. "Help you? Where am I?" The words came out more desperately than I'd intended. She frowned. "You're in Kadoka. Are you okay?" Kadoka. I knew that name. Small town in central South Dakota on I-90. I was supposed to pass through it on my way to Rapid City. How far is it to I-90? About 3 miles north. You just take Main Street through town. It connects right to the interstate. 3 miles. After driving 120 miles on that nightmare road, I was 3 miles from where I needed to be. What's the fastest way to Rapid City from here? Just take I-90 west. It's about 70 miles. I thanked her and walked back to my truck. My hands were still shaking as I started the engine. I followed her directions through town, and sure enough, within 5 minutes, I saw the green signs for I-90 West. I merged onto the interstate and felt something in my chest unclench. This was familiar. This was normal. Cars passing in both lanes, mile markers, exit signs, the ordinary infrastructure of civilization. I pushed the truck to 70 miles per hour, eager to make up lost time. The snow had stopped completely. The roads were clear. The sky was even starting to show stars between the clouds. At 10:47 p.m., I pulled into the delivery location in Rapid City. 4 hours late, but I'd made it. The night manager came out to meet me, clearly annoyed about the delay. "Where the hell have you been? We expected you at 7. I got caught in that pileup on I-90, had to take a detour." "What pileup? Highway's been clear all day." I stared at him. "The multi-vehicle accident east of Murdo. The state police had the whole highway shut down." He shook his head. "I've been listening to the traffic reports all evening because I was waiting for you. There's been no accidents reported on I-90. I wanted to argue, wanted to insist that I'd seen it, that a state trooper had directed me, that I'd driven 120 miles because of that detour. But I was too tired, too shaken. I just wanted this delivery done so I could find a motel and sleep. They unloaded the truck. I signed the paperwork. By midnight, I was checked into a cheap motel off the highway, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at my logbook. The page for today was still incomplete. The last entry, 4:52 p.m. Exited I-90 onto County Road 47. I needed to fill in the rest. The DOT required it, but I couldn't remember most of it. Oh, I remembered the events. The endless road, the abandoned police car, the town of Kadoka. But the specific times, locations, miles, they were fuzzy, like trying to remember a dream after waking. I did my best, made up reasonable-sounding entries. 6:30 p.m., continuing on Detour route. 8:45 p.m., reached Kadoka, SD. 9:00 p.m., returned to I-90. But even as I wrote them, I knew they were wrong. The times didn't match what had actually happened. The distances didn't make sense. I set the logbook aside and pulled out my phone. Searched for County Road 47, South Dakota. The search returned nothing. No county road by that number in the part of South Dakota where I'd been driving. I searched for State Route 183, South Dakota. No results. Just like the voice on the radio had said, there was no State Route 183. I searched for I-90 accident Murdo March 15, 2016. Nothing. No news reports. No traffic advisories. No mention of any accidents on that stretch of highway on that date. According to the internet, the detour I'd taken didn't exist. The accident that had caused it hadn't happened. The roads I'd driven on weren't real, but I'd driven them. For hours, for 120 miles. I turned off the light and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, I could hear the distant sound of traffic on I-90. Normal traffic. Real traffic. People going places that appeared on maps. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, I dreamed of straight roads through empty prairies, of police cars with no drivers, of tire tracks that ended in the middle of nowhere. I woke up at 6:00 a.m. feeling like I'd barely slept. Every muscle in my body ached. My eyes were gritty and sore. I showered, dressed, and checked out of the motel by 6:30. My truck was where I'd parked it, covered in a thin layer of frost. I did a walk-around inspection, checking lights, tires, connections. Everything looked fine. Normal. Like the previous night had been just another routine drive. I climbed into the cab and sat there for a moment before starting the engine. The logbook sat on the passenger seat where I'd left it. I picked it up and looked at yesterday's page again. The entries I'd written looked wrong in the morning light. The handwriting was mine, but it seemed shaky somehow, like I'd been writing while exhausted or stressed. More than that, there was something odd about the page itself. In the margin, next to the 4:52 p.m. entry, there was a small mark. I leaned closer, holding the page up to the light coming through the windshield. It wasn't a mark, it was writing. Tiny, barely visible writing in pencil, so light I'd missed it in the motel room. It said, "Don't go back." I felt ice in my veins. I hadn't written that, I was sure of it. So, who had? I flipped through the rest of the logbook looking for other anomalies. Most of it looked normal, my usual entries in my usual handwriting. But there, on a page from 2 weeks ago, another margin note. They're not real officers. And on a page from a month ago, the roads loop back. I'd never written these. I knew I hadn't. But they were in my logbook, in what looked like my handwriting, just much smaller and lighter. My phone rang, making me jump. It was my dispatcher, Carol. "David, finally. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you since yesterday afternoon." "I made the delivery. Everything's fine." "Everything is not fine. You were 4 hours late. The client is threatening to drop us. What the hell happened?" I wanted to tell her the truth. Wanted to describe the detour, the impossible road, the police cruiser with no driver. But I knew how it would sound. Crazy. Like I was having a breakdown. There was a snowstorm. I had to take a detour. Lost cell signal for a while. "A detour?" I checked the traffic reports. There were no road closures on your route. "There was an accident. Police diverted me onto a county road. It took a lot longer than expected." A pause. I could hear her typing. "I'm not showing any reported accidents on I-90 yesterday, not in South Dakota anyway." It was there. I saw it. "David, are you okay? You sound off." "I'm fine, just tired. The detour was stressful." Another pause. "Okay. Well, you've got another load to pick up. Can you handle it?" I looked at the dashboard, at the road ahead, visible through the windshield. Could I handle it? Could I get back on the road after what had happened? I didn't have a choice. This was my job. This was my life. "Yeah, I can handle it." "Good. I'm sending you the details now. Pick up in Sturgis, delivery in Billings. Should be straightforward." "Got it." "And David, next time there's a problem, call me. Don't just disappear for 4 hours." "I'll try." She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at the screen. 4 hours. That's what everyone kept saying. 4 hours missing from yesterday. But I remembered those hours. Driving through snow, watching the miles accumulate, stopping at the police cruiser. The hours weren't missing from my memory. They were missing from reality. I started the engine and pulled out of the motel parking lot. The directions to Sturgis were simple. Just stay on I-90 heading west. Easy. As I drove, I kept watching for exits, for county roads, for any sign that looked like it might lead to that detour again. I passed the exit where I thought I'd turned off yesterday. But there was no County Road 47 sign, just a service road leading to a ranch, marked as private property. I drove past Murdo, the town near where the accident was supposed to have been. No signs of any incident, no police presence, just a quiet stretch of interstate on a clear morning. It was like yesterday had never happened, like I'd hallucinated the entire thing, except I had the miles on my odometer. I'd burned through a significant amount of fuel, and I'd lost 4 hours that I couldn't fully account for. The pickup in Sturgis went smoothly. I loaded the freight, motorcycle parts, headed for a manufacturer in Billings, and got back on the road by noon. I-90 west through South Dakota into Wyoming. The landscape rolled by, familiar and ordinary. I passed other trucks, cars, RVs, normal traffic on a normal highway, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The road felt different somehow, like it was just slightly off from what it should be. The mile markers seemed to pass at irregular intervals. The exits didn't quite match what my GPS showed. I told myself I was being paranoid, that yesterday had spooked me and I was seeing problems where none existed. But then, just past Gillette, Wyoming, I saw it. A police car on the shoulder, lights flashing. An officer standing by the road, waving cars past an accident scene. My heart started pounding. Not again, please, not again. As I got closer, I could see it was a real accident. 2 cars, fender bender, minor damage. The officer was just directing traffic around them, nothing suspicious, nothing strange. I drove past, watching in my mirrors as the scene receded. The officer waved at another car, everything normal. But my hands were shaking on the wheel because, for a moment, as I'd driven past, I'd seen something in the police car. Or thought I'd seen something. The car was empty. No officer inside. Just an empty cruiser with the lights on. But that was impossible. The officer had been standing right there. He must have gotten out of the car. Unless he'd never been in it. Unless... I pushed the thought away. I was being ridiculous. Paranoid. The events of yesterday were making me see things that weren't there. I delivered the load to Billings that evening without incident. Found another cheap motel. Ordered pizza and ate it while watching mindless TV, trying not to think about detours or missing hours or impossible roads. That night I had the dream again. The straight road through the prairie. The falling snow. The police cruiser appearing out of nowhere. But this time, when the window rolled down, I saw myself sitting in the driver's seat, older, gray-haired, wearing a state trooper's uniform. Dreamy smiled and said, "Take the next exit. It's just a short detour." I woke up in a cold sweat. Over the next few weeks, I tried to forget about it. Tried to treat it like a weird experience that had no explanation and didn't matter. I took other loads, drove other routes, stayed away from that part of South Dakota. But I couldn't stop checking my logbook, and I kept finding more notes. Small, penciled entries in the margins. Always in my handwriting, but I never remembered writing them. The accidents are false. They reroute you to feed. Time doesn't pass the same there. I've been driving this route for years. That last one scared me the most, because I'd only been on that detour for 1 day. One impossible day. I hadn't been driving it for years. But what if part of me had? What if some version of me had taken that detour and never left? Was still driving it, loop after loop, while another version of me continued on with normal life? I started asking other drivers if they'd ever experienced anything similar. Strange detours. Roads that didn't exist. Police giving directions to nowhere. Most looked at me like I was crazy. A few just shook their heads and changed the subject. But one old-timer, a guy named Frank who'd been driving for 40 years, gave me a long look when I asked. "You took one of the ghost detours," he said. Ghost detours. That's what some guys call them, roads that appear when you need them, or when they need you. You drive for hours, feels like days sometimes, then you're back on the main highway like nothing happened. Has it happened to you? He nodded slowly. Twice. Once in Nevada, once in Montana. Both times, police directed me off the main road. Both times, I drove for hours on roads that shouldn't exist. Both times, I lost hours I couldn't account for. What are they? Frank shrugged. Hell if I know. Some guys think it's aliens, some think it's government testing, some think it's something weirder. What do you think? He looked out at the parking lot, at the trucks lined up under the harsh lights. I think there are roads in this country that aren't on any map, roads that exist between places, and sometimes, for reasons nobody understands, we get sent onto them. Why? Maybe because we're drivers. Maybe because we spend so much time on the road that we're more susceptible or something. Or maybe it's random, wrong place, wrong time. He looked back at me. The important thing is, if it happens again, don't try to figure it out. Don't try to go back and find the road. Just drive through and get out. That's how you survive it. Survive? Some guys don't come back. Oh, they show up eventually. Make their deliveries. Go home. But they're different, distant. Like part of them is still on that other road. He tapped his temple. Up here, they never really left. I thought about my logbook. Those notes I didn't remember writing. I've been driving this route for years. Was part of me still there? Still on County Road 47, watching the miles accumulate, looking for Route 183 that would never appear. That was 6 years ago. I still drive truck. Still make runs through South Dakota occasionally, though I avoid that stretch of I-90 when I can. My logbook kept accumulating notes. Every few weeks I'd find a new one. Warnings, observations, details about the detour that I didn't consciously remember. Last month I found one that chilled me to the bone. It said, "You've taken the detour 7 times now. You just don't remember." 7 times? But I only remembered once, that day in March 2016. Unless Frank was right, unless part of me never left. Was still taking that detour over and over, while my conscious mind continued on with regular life. I started keeping a separate notebook. Every time I drive through that part of South Dakota, I write down the date, time, and exact route. I check it obsessively, looking for gaps, for missing hours. So far, I've found 3 instances where my times don't match up. 3 trips where I should have arrived sooner than I did, but can't account for the extra time. 3 detours I don't remember taking. The notes in my logbook keep appearing. The most recent one, from last week, said something that keeps me awake at night. It said, "Eventually, you won't come back." I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's a warning or a prediction, or just the ramblings of whatever part of my subconscious is writing these notes. But I know this. Something happened on County Road 47. Something that shouldn't be possible. And whatever it was, it's not done with me. Every time I see police lights now, my heart races. Every time I see a detour sign, I feel that same cold dread. Because I know that one day I'll be directed onto another road that doesn't exist. I'll drive for hours that won't pass the same in the real world. And eventually, as that note predicted, I won't come back. Not all of me, anyway. Some part of me will stay on that road forever, driving through the snow, watching for Route 183, following signs that lead nowhere. Joining all the other drivers who took the detour and never fully returned, the roads between places, the highways that don't exist, the detours that the police never mentioned, because they were never really police at all. They're still out there, still rerouting unsuspecting drivers, still collecting hours and miles and pieces of consciousness. And if you drive long enough, late enough, through remote enough country, eventually you'll see the lights. You'll be waved onto an exit that isn't on any map. You'll be given directions to a road that shouldn't exist. And when you finally make it back, if you make it back, you'll check your logbook and find hours missing. You'll find notes you don't remember writing. You'll find yourself checking your mirrors, wondering if the road behind you is the same one you've been driving, or if somewhere, somehow you made a wrong turn and never realized it. I'm still driving, still making deliveries, still trying to convince myself that March Day in 2016 was a one-time thing. But I know better. The detour is always there, waiting. And one day, I'll take it again. Maybe I already have. My name is Robert Hayes, but everyone calls me Rob. I'm 53 years old, and I've been driving commercial trucks for 28 years. Started when I was 25, right after my stint in the Coast Guard ended. Thought I'd do it for a year or two, save some money, figure out what I really wanted to do with my life. 28 years later, I'm still behind the wheel. This story takes place in January 2014. I remember the exact date because it was my daughter's birthday, January 19th. She was turning 22, had just graduated college, and I'd promised her I'd be home for the weekend to celebrate. It was important. I'd missed too many birthdays over the years, too many holidays, too many of those small moments that you don't realize matter until they're gone. I was hauling refrigerated goods from Omaha, Nebraska to Bozeman, Montana. Frozen food products mostly. Vegetables, prepared meals, ice cream. The load wasn't particularly valuable, but it was time-sensitive. Refrigerated freight always is. If the reefer unit fails, or you get delayed too long, the whole load can spoil. I'd seen it happen to other drivers. Thousands of dollars in product ruined, and it's your ass on the line. The dispatcher, a guy named Tom, who I'd worked with for probably 15 years at that point, had warned me about the weather when I picked up the load. There's a system moving in from the northwest, he'd said. Alberta Clipper. Fast moving, but it's going to dump snow all across Montana and Wyoming. You sure you want to take this run? I'd checked the forecast myself. The storm was supposed to hit Montana late Friday night, early Saturday morning. If I pushed hard, left Wednesday evening, drove through Thursday and Friday, I could make the delivery Friday afternoon and be ahead of the worst weather. I'll beat it, I told Tom. I know that route. I can make Bozeman by Friday at 2 p.m. easy. He'd shrugged. Your call, just be careful. These Alberta Clippers can be unpredictable. I loaded up Wednesday evening, did my inspection, and pulled out of the Omaha distribution center around 6 p.m. The reefer unit was running smooth, temperature holding steady at -10 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything looked good. The route was straightforward. I-80 west through Nebraska and into Wyoming, then I-90 north through Wyoming and into Montana, then I-90 west straight into Bozeman. Total distance about 900 miles. At a sustained 60 miles per hour, accounting for stops, I could do it in maybe 16, 17 hours of driving. Spread that over 2 days with proper rest breaks, and I'd arrive with time to spare. Wednesday night's drive was uneventful. Clear skies, light traffic, good road conditions. I pushed through Nebraska and into Wyoming, stopped at a truck stop near Cheyenne around midnight for fuel and a quick meal. Back on the road by 1 a.m. I drove until about 5 a.m. Thursday morning, then pulled into a rest area near Casper to sleep. I'd learned over the years that you can't push too hard. 6 hours of good sleep is better than 12 hours of fighting to stay awake. I set my alarm for noon, reclined the seat, and was out within minutes, woke up at 11:47 a.m., 13 minutes before my alarm. That was typical for me. After decades of irregular sleep schedules, my body had developed its own internal clock. I got out, stretched, used the facilities, grabbed some coffee from my thermos, and checked the reefer unit. Temperature still perfect. Load secure. Back on the road by 12:15 p.m. The sky was still clear, but I could see clouds building in the distance to the northwest. The storm was out there, coming closer. But I had time. Thursday afternoon passed quickly. I made good progress through Wyoming, the landscape getting progressively more rugged as I moved north. Rolling hills gave way to mountains. The highway climbed and descended through passes, wound through valleys. This was the country I'd driven dozens of times, and I never got tired of it. Even in winter, even under gray skies, it had a stark beauty. By Thursday evening, I was approaching the Wyoming-Montana border. The sun had set around 5:30, and now it was full dark. The temperature had dropped into the teens. I could see my breath when I stopped for fuel in Sheridan. The attendant at the truck stop, an older woman with weathered skin and kind eyes, warned me about the forecast. Storms coming in faster than they thought. Supposed to hit the border area around midnight, maybe earlier. I checked my phone. The weather app showed the same thing. The storm had accelerated. Instead of hitting Friday morning, it was now expected late Thursday night. I did the math. I was maybe 2 hours from the Montana border, another 3 hours to Bozeman from there. If I pushed hard, didn't stop except for fuel, I could make it before the storm got too bad. "I'll be fine," I told the attendant. "I'm going to beat it." She gave me a doubtful look, but didn't argue. "Drive safe." Back on I-90, heading north. The traffic was light, just a few other trucks, occasional cars. Smart people were probably already home, preparing for the storm. But I wasn't worried. I'd driven through countless snowstorms over the years. You just slow down, stay focused, give yourself extra space. The clouds moved in fast. Within an hour, the stars had disappeared, swallowed by an overcast sky that seemed to press down on the highway. The wind picked up, buffeting the trailer. I could feel it pushing against the truck, requiring constant small corrections to the steering. Around 10:30 p.m., I crossed into Montana. There was a welcome center right at the border, lit up and open, but I didn't stop. I wanted to keep moving, put as many miles behind me as possible before the snow started. The first flakes appeared around 11 o'clock p.m. Just a few at first, dancing in my headlights. Within 15 minutes, it was coming down steadily. Not heavy yet, but persistent. The temperature had dropped to 9 degrees. I turned on my CB radio, scanning through channels to hear what other drivers were saying about conditions ahead. Most of the chatter was routine. Someone looking for a good place to park for the night. Another driver asking about restaurant recommendations in Billings. Then I heard something that made me pay attention. A trucker with a deep, gravelly voice. "Any you guys on I-90 North, be advised there's accidents building up around Hardin. Couple cars off the road, troopers are out. Might want to take it slow." Hardin was about 60 miles ahead of me. I made a mental note to be extra cautious when I got there. The snow intensified. By 11:30, it was coming down hard enough that my wipers were working constantly. Visibility dropped to maybe a quarter mile. The road was getting slick. I could feel the slight loss of traction when I accelerated or braked. I slowed to 50 miles per hour, then to 45. The white lines became harder to see. The snow was starting to accumulate on the pavement, a thin layer that would only get thicker. Around midnight, I saw the first accident. A car in the median, nose down in a ditch. Emergency flashers blinking. No other vehicles around. The driver must have already been picked up or had walked to find help. I slowed even more as I passed, wary of ice that might have formed from the initial accident. The CB crackled. "This is getting bad out here, folks. I'm pulling off at the next exit. Not worth risking it." Another voice. "Smart move. This is shaping up to be a real nasty one." I checked my GPS. I was about 40 miles from Hardin, maybe another 2 hours to Bozeman at this reduced speed. I could make it. The truck was handling fine, the load was secure, the reefer was running. I just needed to stay focused and keep moving. By 12:30 a.m., the visibility had dropped to maybe 200 feet. The snow was coming down in thick curtains, swirling in the wind. I could barely see past the front of my truck. My speed was down to 35 miles per hour. That's when I saw the lights ahead. Red and blue, flashing through the snow. A lot of them. I slowed to 25, then 20, approaching cautiously. As I got closer, I could make out the scene. Multiple vehicles involved, looked like at least 3 cars and a pickup truck. They were scattered across both lanes and the median. Montana State Police cruisers were parked at angles, their light bars cutting through the falling snow. Flares had been set out, creating pools of orange light on the white pavement. A trooper stood in the road wearing a heavy coat and reflective vest, holding up one hand in a stop gesture. I brought the truck to a halt about 30 feet from him. He walked up to my door. I rolled down the window, hit immediately by the bitter cold and swirling snow. "Evening, officer. Looks like a bad one." He was middle-aged, maybe late 40s, with a lined face and tired eyes. "It's getting worse by the minute. Highway's closed ahead. We've got a semi-jackknifed about 5 miles up, blocking both lanes. Combined with this weather, we're shutting down this stretch of I-90. My heart sank. For how long? Could be all night, maybe into tomorrow morning. We've got wreckers coming, but in these conditions... He shook his head. "You're going to have to take a detour." I'd been afraid he was going to say that. "What's the detour?" He pulled out a flashlight and a laminated map, holding it up so I could see. Snow immediately started accumulating on the plastic surface. About half a mile ahead, there's an exit for Route 47 East. Take that for approximately 20 miles, then you'll intersect with Route 306 North. Follow that for another 30 miles or so, and it'll bring you back to I-90 west of Billings. I studied the map, trying to memorize the route. Route 47 to Route 306, then back to I-90. That's adding what, 50 miles? About that. But the roads are county-maintained, should be passable, definitely better than sitting here all night. I nodded slowly. I didn't love the idea of getting off the interstate in a snowstorm, but he was right. Sitting here wouldn't get me any closer to Bozeman. "Any other drivers taking this detour?" "You're the first one I've directed. Most folks are turning around, heading back to Billings to wait it out. But if you need to keep moving, this is your option." I thought about my daughter's birthday, about the promise I'd made, about the frozen load in my trailer that needed to be delivered. "All right, Route 47 to Route 306, then back to I-90. That's right, drive careful. This storm's not letting up anytime soon." "Will do. Thanks, officer." He stepped back, waving me forward. I eased the truck past the accident scene, careful to avoid the debris scattered across the road. In my mirrors, I watched the trooper move to stop the next vehicle coming up behind me, a sedan with out-of-state plates. Half a mile ahead, just like he'd said, I saw the exit sign for Route 47. The sign was partially covered in snow, but I could make out the number. I put on my turn signal and guided the truck down the exit ramp. At the bottom was a stop sign at a T intersection. Route 47 ran east-west. I needed to go east. I turned right and started down the road. The pavement was rougher than the interstate, more potholes and cracks. Snow was accumulating faster here, already 3 or 4 inches on the road. My truck plowed through it, but I had to keep my speed down to 30 miles per hour. The road cut through open country. No buildings, no lights, just darkness and falling snow. My headlights illuminated maybe 50 feet of road ahead, and that was it. Everything beyond was white void. I settled in for the detour. 50 extra miles at 30 miles per hour meant about an hour and 40 minutes added to my trip. I'd still make Bozeman, just later than planned. Still ahead of the worst of the storm, hopefully. The miles ticked by slowly. 5 miles, 10 miles. The road curved gently through the landscape, occasionally dipping into valleys or climbing low hills. The snow kept falling, heavier now, I had to turn my wipers up to their highest setting. 15 miles, 20 miles. I should be approaching Route 306 soon. I watched for signs, for any indication of an upcoming intersection. But there was nothing, just the road, stretching ahead into the snowy darkness. 22 miles. 23 miles. The trooper had said approximately 20 miles to Route 306. Maybe my odometer was off slightly. Maybe the distance was a bit farther than he'd indicated. I'd give it a few more miles. 25 miles. 26 miles. Still no Route 306. No signs at all, actually. Just this one road, cutting through the empty prairie. I started to feel the first stirrings of unease. This didn't feel right. Even rural Montana had road signs, mile markers, some kind of infrastructure. But maybe the signs were just covered in snow. That made sense. In a storm like this, smaller signs could easily get obscured. I kept driving, 28 miles, 30 miles. The road began to climb. A long, gradual ascent up what felt like a significant hill or small mountain. The engine worked harder, the transmission downshifting to maintain speed. Through the snow, I could barely make out dark shapes on either side. Trees, maybe, or rock formations. 32 miles. 33 miles. I was now well past where Route 306 should have been. Something was wrong. Either I'd missed the turn somehow, or the trooper's directions had been incorrect. I slowed to a stop in the middle of the road, put the truck in neutral, set the parking brake, sat there with the engine idling and the snow piling up on the windshield between wiper passes. My phone showed no signal. Not surprising this far from any town. The GPS was still frozen on my last known position, unable to update without connectivity. I could turn around. That was the smart move. Drive back to I-90, take my chances with the accident scene, or head back to Billings to wait out the storm. But I'd driven 33 miles already. Turning around meant another 33 miles back. Then, who knows how long to clear the interstate. I'd lose hours. No, I'd keep going. The detour had to connect eventually. Route 306 might be further than the trooper thought. Or maybe there was an alternate route that would get me back to I-90. I released the brake and continued driving. 34 miles. 35 miles. The road crested the hill and started descending the other side. The slope was steeper here, and I had to ride the brakes carefully to control my speed on the snow-covered pavement. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. In the snow on the road ahead, illuminated by my headlights, I could see tire tracks, fresh tracks, cutting through the accumulated snow, my tracks. The tread pattern was identical to my tires, and these tracks were recent. The falling snow hadn't filled them in yet, but that was impossible. I'd been driving in a straight line, following the road. There was no way I could be crossing my own path. Unless the road had looped back on itself somehow. A wide circle that I hadn't noticed in the darkness and snow. But I'd been watching my compass. I'd been heading generally east, then northeast as the road curved. There's no way I could have made a complete loop without noticing. I stopped the truck again, staring at those tracks, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The tracks ran parallel to my current position for maybe 50 feet, then curved away to the left and disappeared, like a previous version of me had driven this exact stretch of road and then turned off somewhere. But I hadn't turned. I'd been following this one road the whole time. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. The heater was running full blast, but I felt cold. Not from the temperature, from something else. I started driving again, slowly now, watching those parallel tracks. They stayed alongside me for maybe a quarter mile, then gradually diverged and faded into the snow-covered landscape. 40 miles, 45 miles, 50 miles. I'd now driven twice the distance the trooper had indicated. And I was nowhere, just on this one road, cutting through an endless white emptiness, with no signs, no landmarks, no indication of where I was or where this road was going. The storm showed no signs of letting up. If anything, it was getting worse. The wind had picked up, creating near whiteout conditions at times. I had to slow to 25 miles per hour, then to 20, 55 miles, 60 miles. The road entered a forested area. Trees crowded close on both sides, their branches heavy with snow. My headlights caught them swaying in the wind, creating dancing shadows that played tricks on my eyes. That's when I saw the rest area. It appeared suddenly on the right. A small paved lot with a picnic shelter and what looked like bathroom facilities. A single light pole provided dim illumination, though the bulb flickered irregularly, casting uncertain light across the snow-covered lot. I slowed to a crawl, looking at the rest area. It was completely deserted. No other vehicles, no signs of recent use. The snow in the parking lot was smooth and undisturbed, at least 6 inches deep. Something about it bothered me. Rest areas usually had signs announcing them, listing available facilities, maybe the name of the area, but this one had appeared with no warning, no signage at all. I almost stopped. Part of me desperately wanted to stop, to get out and stretch, to check the map, to use the bathroom. But another part, some instinct I'd learned to trust over nearly 3 decades of driving, told me to keep moving. I drove past the rest area slowly. In my mirrors, I watched the flickering light recede into the distance, swallowed by the falling snow. And then, maybe half a mile past the rest area, I saw it again. The exact same rest area. Same layout, same picnic shelter, same bathroom building, same flickering light pole. I hit the brakes harder than I intended. The truck skidded slightly on the snow before coming to a stop. I sat there, staring at what should have been impossible. This wasn't similar to the previous rest area. It was identical. Same architecture, same placement, same everything. Like I'd driven in a circle and come back to the same spot, except I hadn't circled. The road had been straight. I'd been watching my compass. I'd been heading northeast the whole time, so how was I seeing the same rest area twice? I checked my odometer. 63 miles since I'd left I-90. That was over 20 miles more than the detour was supposed to be. My hands were shaking worse now. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't right. None of this was right. I looked at the rest area in my headlights. The snow fell through the beam, creating that same hypnotic curtain effect. The light pole flickered. The picnic shelter stood dark and empty. I should stop. I should get out, look at a map, try to figure out where I was. Call for help if I could get a signal. But I couldn't make myself do it. Some primal part of my brain was screaming not to stop at that rest area, to keep driving, to keep moving forward no matter what. I pressed the accelerator and drove on, leaving the rest area behind. The road continued through the forest, trees on both sides, branches creating a tunnel effect. Snow falling steadily. My wipers working overtime. 70 miles. 75 miles. I was exhausted now. I'd been driving for hours, most of it in terrible conditions with mounting stress and confusion. My eyes felt gritty. My shoulders ached from the tension of gripping the wheel, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. Not until I found Route 306, or I-90 or something. Anything that made sense. 80 miles. The forest began to thin. The road emerged into open country again. The snow seemed to fall even harder here, with no trees to break the wind. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. I was driving blind, essentially. following the faint outline of the road, trying to stay between the ditches, hoping nothing appeared in front of me. That's when the reefer unit alarm went off. The shrill beeping of the refrigeration alarm cut through the cab like a knife. I glanced at the temperature display on my dashboard. It read -3 degrees Fahrenheit. The reefer was supposed to maintain -10. 7 degrees might not sound like much, but in refrigerated transport, it's everything. Most frozen food needs to stay at 0 or below. If the temperature rises too much, the product starts to thaw. Once that happens, you can't refreeze it and sell it. The entire load becomes unsalvageable. I checked the reefer status panel. The unit was running. I could hear it, feel the vibration through the cab, but it wasn't maintaining temperature. Something was wrong. I couldn't stop to investigate. Not here, not in the middle of this storm on this impossible road. I had to keep moving, find civilization, find help. I turned off the alarm but kept watching the temperature display. -2 degrees now. Still dropping. The road continued through the open prairie. Snow accumulated on the pavement faster than my tires could clear it. I was down to 15 miles per hour, the truck crawling through what must have been 8 or 9 inches of powder. 85 miles, 90 miles, the temperature in the trailer dropped to 0. Then 1 degree above, then 2 degrees. I felt sick. This load represented probably $40,000 in product. If it thawed, my company would take the loss, but I'd be the one explaining what happened. Why I'd kept driving in a blizzard instead of finding shelter. Why I'd taken a detour that added God knows how many miles to the trip. Assuming I ever made it off this road to file a report. 95 miles. 100 miles. I'd now driven 100 miles on a detour that was supposed to be 50. The storm showed no signs of abating. The reefer temperature had climbed to 5 degrees above 0, and I had no idea where I was or where this road was going. The CB radio crackled suddenly, startling me. Just static at first, that familiar white noise, then, cutting through the interference, a voice, "Anyone on Route 47 can hear me." I grabbed the handset immediately. "This is a commercial vehicle on Route 47. I can hear you. Who is this?" Static, then, "Been driving. Hours. Can't find the junction." The voice was male, young-sounding, with an edge of panic. The signal was weak and kept breaking up. "I can barely hear you," I said into the handset. "You're breaking up. Can you repeat?" "Route 47. Supposed to connect to 306. It's not there. Just keeps going." My chest tightened. Someone else was on this road. Someone else had taken the same detour and couldn't find the junction. "How long have you been driving?" I asked. "Don't know. Lost track. Hours. Maybe." The signal was getting worse. More static than voice. "What kind of vehicle are you in? Where are you exactly?" "Can't." Signal fading. "If you find a way out, please." Then nothing. Just static. I tried calling back, pressing the transmit button and asking if anyone could hear me, but there was no response, just the endless white noise of an empty channel. I hung up the handset, my hand trembling. Another driver was out here somewhere, as lost as I was, maybe ahead of me, maybe behind me. No way to know. The road began to climb again, another long, gradual ascent. The truck labored through the deepening snow. I checked my fuel gauge. Just under half a tank. I'd burned through fuel much faster than normal because of the constant low-gear grinding through snow. At this rate, I had maybe 200 miles of range left. Less if conditions got worse. 105 miles. 110 miles. The temperature in the trailer was now 8 degrees above 0, well into the danger zone for most frozen products. I'd already lost the load. The question now was whether I'd be around to explain what happened. The road leveled out at the top of the climb. Through the snow, I could just barely make out that I was on some kind of plateau or mesa. The land stretched flat in all directions, though visibility was so poor I couldn't see more than a few dozen feet. 115 miles. That's when I saw the gas station. It materialized out of the snow like a mirage. An old-style service station with a single island and 2 pumps. There was a small building behind the pumps, dark except for one window that glowed with dim orange light. I slowed to a crawl, staring at it. This was the first sign of civilization I'd seen since leaving I-90. The first indication that human beings existed anywhere on this road. But something about it felt wrong. The architecture was outdated. This looked like a gas station from the 1950s or 60s, all angular lines and weathered metal. The pumps were ancient, with manual dials instead of digital displays. Still, it was something. Somewhere. A place with light and possibly warmth, and maybe someone who could tell me where the hell I was. I pulled into the lot, my tires crunching through undisturbed snow. The entire area was deserted. No other vehicles, no footprints, nothing. Snow had piled up around the pumps and against the building's walls. I parked near the building and sat there for a moment, engine idling, trying to decide what to do. The orange light in the window flickered slightly, like it came from a fire or oil lamp rather than electricity. I grabbed my flashlight, zipped up my coat, and opened the door. The cold hit me immediately. It must have been close to 0 degrees outside, and that wasn't accounting for wind chill. Snow swirled around me as I climbed down from the cab. The wind howled across the plateau, driving the snow almost horizontal at times. I could barely see the building through the white curtain, even though it was only 30 feet away. I trudged through the snow toward the orange glow in the window. As I got closer, I could make out more details. The building was small, maybe 20 feet by 20 feet. The siding was weathered wood, gray and cracked. A faded sign hung over what looked like a door, but I couldn't make out what it said through the accumulated snow. I reached the window and cupped my hands to look inside. The orange light came from an old oil heater in the corner, the kind that burned kerosene and gave off that distinctive smell. By its light, I could see the interior was furnished like an old-fashioned gas station office. A wooden counter, a cash register that was probably from the 1960s, a couple of chairs, shelves with dusty cans and bottles. But no people. The room was empty. I moved to the door and tried the handle. Locked. I knocked loudly, the sound barely audible over the wind. "Hello? Anyone here? I need help." No response. I knocked again, harder. "I'm lost. I need directions. Please." Still nothing. The orange light continued to flicker. The heater presumably kept burning. But there was no one there. I walked around the building, fighting through drifts that came up to my knees. The back had a door as well, also locked. There were 2 windows, both dark. No other vehicles, no generator, no power lines. This place was completely isolated. I made my way back to my truck, snow already filling in my footprints. The whole excursion had taken maybe 10 minutes, but I was chilled to the bone, my face numb from the wind. Back in the cab, I cranked the heat and sat there shivering, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. An abandoned gas station, or at least an unoccupied one, with a heater burning but no one tending it. In the middle of a snowstorm, in the middle of nowhere, on a road that seemed to go on forever. The reefer temp had climbed to 10 degrees above 0. I definitely lost the load now. $40,000 worth of product that would have to be disposed of. I'd probably lose my job over this. After 28 years, I'd finally fucked up badly enough to get fired, if I made it out to face the consequences. I put the truck in gear and pulled back onto the road. The gas station disappeared behind me almost immediately, swallowed by the snow and darkness. 120 miles. 125 miles. I was running on fumes now, metaphorically speaking. Exhausted, scared, disoriented. My eyes kept trying to close. I had to physically shake my head every few minutes to stay alert. The road descended from the plateau, winding down through switchbacks that were treacherous in the snow. I had to use the lowest gear, riding the brakes constantly, the truck barely creeping forward. 130 miles. At the bottom of the descent, the road entered another forested area, but these trees were different from the ones earlier. They were dead. Bare branches reached toward the sky like skeletal fingers. No leaves, no needles, nothing. Just dead trees standing in silent ranks on both sides of the road. It was deeply unsettling. A forest fire could kill trees like this, but I didn't see any signs of burning. Disease could do it too, but the trees all looked the same age, the same state of decay, like they'd all died at the exact same moment. 135 miles. The CB crackled again, that same voice from before, clearer this time. "Please!" And someone I've been driving for don't know how long. I grabbed the handset. "I can hear you. This is the truck driver from before. Where are you?" "I don't know. Been following this road, past a gas station, old one." My heart skipped. "I saw that too, about 20 miles back for me. Are you ahead of me or behind me?" "Don't know. Time doesn't make sense. My clock says." The signal dissolved into static. I tried calling back, but got no response. 140 miles. 145 miles. The dead forest went on and on. Miles of lifeless trees, their branches heavy with snow, creating an eerie corridor that seemed to press in from both sides. That's when I noticed something that made my already racing heart beat even faster. Ahead in my headlights, I could see something blocking the road. A tree had fallen, lying across both lanes. I slowed to a stop about 20 feet from it. The tree was massive, at least 3 feet in diameter. There was no way I was moving it. Not by myself, not in these conditions. I sat there staring at it, feeling desperation creep up my spine. This road had been my only option. Now it was blocked, unless... I looked to the right. There was a gap in the trees, what might have been a side road or wide shoulder. If I could carefully navigate around the fallen tree using that space, I could get back on the road on the other side. It was risky. The ground off the pavement might be soft. I could get stuck, but I didn't have a choice. I couldn't go back. I'd driven 145 miles, and I couldn't stop here and wait for help that might never come. I eased the truck to the right, off the pavement and onto the shoulder. The surface was rough, covered in deep snow. I could feel the tires searching for traction. I went slowly, carefully, keeping the engine in low gear. The truck tilted slightly as the ground sloped. My heart pounded. If I rolled here, that would be the end. No one would find me. I'd freeze to death in the cab before morning. But the truck held. I steered around the fallen tree, giving it a wide berth. My trailer swung around, missing the tree by maybe 2 feet. Then I was past it, easing back onto the pavement on the other side. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. 146 miles. 147 miles. The dead forest finally gave way to open country again. The snow seemed to fall even harder here, if that was possible. I could barely see the road at all now, just following the faint impression of where the pavement might be. 150 miles. I'd driven 3 times the distance of the supposed Detour. I'd used over half my fuel. The temperature in my trailer was now 15 degrees above zero, The product had been thawing for over an hour, and I was no closer to finding Route 306 or I-90 or anything resembling civilization. My phone suddenly vibrated. I grabbed it, shocked to see a signal. Just one bar, but it was there. Multiple missed calls from Tom, my dispatcher, a string of increasingly worried text messages. The most recent one, from 30 minutes ago. "Where are you? You should have been in Bozeman hours ago. Call me." I tried to call him back, but the call wouldn't connect. I tried 911, same thing. The call would start to connect, then drop. I typed out a text. "Lost on Detour, Route 47. Can't find way back to I-90. Need help." I hit send. The message sat there with a sending indicator that spun and spun but never confirmed. Then the signal dropped. Back to no service. 155 miles. 160 miles. I checked my fuel gauge again. Just under a quarter tank. At this rate, I'd run out somewhere around 200 miles, maybe 220 if I was lucky. And then what? Sit in the cab and hope someone found me? How long could I survive in these temperatures with just the residual heat from the engine after it died? Not long. Hours maybe. Definitely not until morning. The road began another long, gradual climb. My truck strained against the grade and the snow. The engine temperature rose slightly. Not into the danger zone, but higher than I like to see. 165 miles. That's when I saw the rest area again. The same one from before. Same picnic shelter, same bathroom building, same flickering light pole, appearing out of the snow like it had been waiting for me. I'd seen this rest area twice already. Once around 60 miles, once a few miles later. Now here it was again at 165 miles. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't just similar architecture. This was the exact same rest area, appearing over and over on a road that should have ended 100 miles ago. I drove past it without slowing. In my mirrors, I watched the flickering light until it disappeared. 170 miles. 175 miles. The reefer temp was now 18 degrees above zero. Everything in that trailer was ruined. Thousands of pounds of vegetables, prepared meals, ice cream, all thawed, all unsalvageable. The financial hit would be massive. But I'd stopped caring about the load. I just wanted to survive, just wanted to see morning. Just wanted to get off this impossible road. 180 miles. The CB crackled once more. That same voice, but different now. Weaker. Desperate. "Please. Running out of fuel. Can't. Much longer. Where are you?" I asked into the handset. "Can you see any landmarks? Anything at all?" "Trees. Dead trees. And snow, always snow." "I'm on the same road," I said. "I don't know how to get off either. But we have to keep trying. We have to keep moving." "Been driving so long, can't remember when I started. Listen to me. How much fuel do you have left?" "Gauge, empty. Running on fumes. Pull over if you can. Find shelter in your vehicle. Conserve warmth. Someone will find us. Someone has to." The transmission cut off mid-sentence. I called back repeatedly, but there was no response. The driver was either out of range or out of fuel. Or something worse. 185 miles. 190 miles. My fuel gauge dipped below the quarter tank mark. The low fuel warning light came on, glowing orange on my dashboard. I had maybe 40 or 50 miles left. That was it. The road leveled out, running straight across what felt like an endless plain. No landmarks, no features, nothing but snow and darkness. 195 miles. 200 miles. My hands were numb from gripping the wheel so hard for so long. My back ached, my eyes burned, but I kept driving because stopping meant giving up, and I wasn't ready to do that yet. 205 miles. The low fuel warning started beeping. Insistent, annoying, impossible to ignore. I was running on vapors now. 210 miles. That's when I saw the lights. The lights appeared in the distance, cutting through the snow and darkness like beacons. Multiple lights, bright and steady, arranged in a pattern that suggested buildings. My heart leaped. This was it. Finally, a town, or at least a truck stop. Somewhere with people and warmth and answers. I pressed the accelerator as much as I dared, pushing the truck up to 25 miles per hour despite the conditions. The lights grew brighter as I approached. 212 miles. 213 miles. The lights resolved into distinct structures. It was a truck stop, a large one, with multiple fuel islands, a sprawling parking lot, and a main building that looked like it housed a restaurant and store. Lights blazed everywhere, white and fluorescent, creating an island of brightness in the surrounding darkness. I pulled into the entrance, tires crunching through the snow in the lot. The parking area was enormous, space for probably 50 trucks, but it was completely empty. Not a single vehicle. That should have been my first warning, but I was too exhausted, too relieved to have found something, to pay attention to the red flags. I parked near the fuel islands and killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening after hours of engine noise and wind. I sat there for a moment, just breathing, my hands shaking from more than just the cold. The building looked modern, well-maintained. Through the large windows I could see bright fluorescent lighting, rows of shelves, what looked like a restaurant counter. But I couldn't see any people. No movement at all. I grabbed my flashlight and coat and climbed down from the cab. The cold was brutal. The wind had died down, but the temperature must have been well below zero now. My breath came out in thick clouds that froze almost instantly. I walked toward the building, my boots crunching in the snow. The lot had been recently plowed. I could see the neat banks of snow pushed to the edges, but fresh powder was already accumulating. As I got closer to the building, I noticed more details. The architecture was modern but generic, the kind of truck stop design you'd see anywhere in America. The signs advertised diesel fuel, hot food, clean restrooms, Wi-Fi, all the usual amenities. But something felt off. The signs looked wrong somehow. The fonts were slightly distorted, like someone had tried to recreate them from memory, rather than using actual templates. The logos for various fuel brands were present but subtly incorrect. Wrong colors, wrong proportions. I reached the entrance, a set of glass doors with the usual open 24 hours decal. I pulled on the handle. The door swung open easily. The interior was brightly lit, almost painfully so after hours of darkness. I stepped inside, grateful for the warmth. A wall of heated air hit me, and I could feel my frozen face starting to tingle as circulation returned. "Hello?" I called out. "Anyone here?" My voice echoed in the space. No response. I walked further in, looking around. The place was set up like a typical truck stop. Aisles of snacks and supplies, a coffee station, a hot food area with warmers and a grill, a restaurant section with booths and tables, all lit up and seemingly operational, but completely deserted. I walked to the coffee station. Fresh coffee sat in the dispensers, still hot. I could smell it. There were clean cups stacked nearby, napkins, stirrers, all the usual supplies. I moved to the hot food area. Under the heat lamps were trays of food, fried chicken, pizza slices, burgers. They looked fresh, steam still rising from some of them. This didn't make sense. Fresh, hot food meant someone had prepared it recently. Within the last hour, probably. But there was no one here, no staff, no customers, no one. "Hello?" I called again, louder this time. "Is anyone working here?" Nothing. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the subtle whoosh of the heating system. I walked toward the back of the store where the restrooms and employee areas typically were. There was a door marked Employees Only. I tried the handle. Locked, I knocked. "Hello, I need help. I'm lost. Can anyone hear me?" No response from behind the door. I turned back to survey the store. That's when I noticed the security cameras. There were several mounted in corners throughout the space, their little red lights blinking to indicate they were recording. Someone was watching, or something was. I walked up to one of the cameras and stared directly into it. "I need help. I've been driving for hours on Route 47. I need to get back to I-90. Can you hear me? Can someone please respond?" The camera stared back silently, its red light blinking in steady rhythm. I felt anger rising, cutting through the exhaustion and fear. I was done with this. Done with the impossible road, the empty places, the feeling that I was trapped in some kind of nightmare. I grabbed a bottle of water from one of the shelves and walked to the counter where the cash register sat. There was a bell next to the register, the kind you ring for service. I hit it hard, making it clang loudly. "I know someone's here. I can see the cameras. I need help." Still nothing. Fine. I needed fuel more than I needed answers. I walked back outside, the cold hitting me again like a physical blow, and went to the fuel islands. The pumps were the modern digital kind with card readers and display screens. I pulled out my company fuel card and swiped it at the pump. The screen lit up. Card accepted. Select fuel grade. I selected diesel and pulled the nozzle from the pump. Walked back to my truck, opened the fuel cap, and inserted the nozzle. Squeezed the handle. Nothing happened. I tried again. The pump should have started flowing. The digital display should have shown gallons and dollars ticking upward, but nothing happened. I walked back to the pump and looked at the screen. It read, "Transaction canceled. Please see attendant." "There is no attendant," I shouted at the machine. I tried my personal credit card. Same result. Card accepted, select grade, insert nozzle, and then nothing, no fuel. I stood there in the freezing cold, staring at this truck stop that had everything I needed but refused to actually provide any of it. Food that was prepared but couldn't be purchased. Fuel that was advertised but wouldn't pump. It was like a stage set. A facade of a truck stop, designed to look real but fundamentally hollow. I walked back to my truck and climbed into the cab, checked my fuel gauge. The warning light was still beeping. I had maybe 10, 15 miles left, not enough to get anywhere. I could stay here. The building was warm. There was food, even if I couldn't figure out how to pay for it. I could take what I needed and leave money on the counter. But every instinct I had was screaming at me to leave this place, to get back on the road, run on those last fumes, and take my chances with whatever came next. I started the engine. It turned over sluggishly. The cold was affecting it now, but it caught and held. I put the truck in gear and drove out of the parking lot back onto Route 47. In my mirrors, I watched the truck stop recede. The lights blazed brightly in the darkness, and then, just like the gas station before, all the lights went out at once. The entire facility went dark, like someone had flipped a master switch, like it had never been there at all. I kept driving, 215 miles, 220 miles. The fuel gauge was pegged at empty now. The warning beep had become continuous. At any moment, the engine would sputter and die and I'd coast to a stop in the middle of nowhere. But the engine kept running. mile after mile burning fuel that shouldn't exist. The truck kept moving forward, 225 miles, 230 miles. This wasn't possible. I should have run out of fuel 50 miles ago. But somehow, impossibly, the truck kept going. The road had changed again. I was back in forested area, but these trees were alive. Pine trees heavy with snow, their branches creating a natural tunnel. The road wound through them in gentle curves. 235 miles. The CB crackled. A new voice this time, older, rougher. "You're getting close." I grabbed the handset. "Close to what? Who is this?" "To the end. You've driven far enough, just a little further now." "The end of what? Where am I? How do I get off this road?" "You don't get off. The road ends when you reach the end. That's how it works." "What works? What is this place?" A pause, static, then, "Some roads don't connect to other roads. They connect to spaces between. You took the detour. Now, you're in the between." "That doesn't make any sense." "Doesn't have to make sense, just has to be true. Keep driving, you'll see." "Wait," the transmission cut off. I called back, but there was no response. 240 mile, 245 miles. The trees began to thin. The road emerged into open country once more. But something was different. The snow was falling lighter now. The wind had died completely. And ahead, through the thinning precipitation, I could see something. A glow. Faint, but growing stronger. 250 miles. The glow resolved into light. Real light. Dawn was breaking. But that wasn't possible. I'd started the detour around midnight. I'd been driving for maybe 5 or 6 hours at most. It shouldn't be dawn yet, unless time worked differently here, in the between. The snow stopped falling entirely. The clouds broke apart, revealing a sky that was transitioning from black to deep blue to pink. Stars faded as the light grew stronger. 255 miles. I crested a hill and saw it stretched out before me. A valley, bathed in the golden light of sunrise. And cutting through that valley, running east to west in a perfectly straight line, was I-90. The interstate. Real, solid, unmistakable. I could see the distinctive green signs, the wide lanes, even a few early morning vehicles. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly cried. I'd made it. Somehow, impossibly, after 255 miles, I'd made it back. The road descended toward the interstate. I could see the junction ahead, a proper on-ramp with merge signs and everything. Route 47 was finally connecting to I-90, just like the trooper had promised. 258 miles. I reached the bottom of the hill and merged onto the interstate. The smooth pavement felt like a miracle after hours on rough county roads. I accelerated to 50, then 60 miles per hour. The truck responded smoothly, like nothing unusual had happened. I checked my mirrors. Behind me, Route 47 curved away and disappeared into the landscape, like any other county road. Normal, unremarkable. I looked at my dashboard. The fuel gauge still read empty, but the engine was running fine. The reefer temperature had stabilized at 21 degrees above zero. The product was completely ruined, but at least the unit wasn't getting worse. My phone vibrated. Signal was back. Multiple notifications came flooding in. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. I pulled onto the shoulder and stopped. Sat there with the engine idling, trying to process what had just happened. According to my odometer, I'd driven 258 miles on the detour. The trooper had said 50 miles. I'd been driving for, I checked my watch, 6 hours and 43 minutes, but I'd covered nearly 200 extra miles. At the speeds I'd been going, that should have taken 8 or 9 hours, not 6.5. The math didn't work. Nothing about any of this worked. I called Tom, my dispatcher. He answered on the first ring. "Jesus Christ, Rob, where the hell have you been? We've had people looking for you." "I'm on I-90, about 50 miles from Bozeman. I got caught in the storm, had to take a detour, lost signal." "What detour?" "There were no detours on your route. We've been monitoring the weather and road conditions all night." The trooper directed me off I-90 onto Route 47 because of an accident. "Rob, there was no accident on I-90 last night. Highway stayed open all night. Conditions were bad, but no closures." I felt ice in my veins. "That's not possible. I was there. I saw the accident scene. The trooper gave me directions." "I'm telling you, there was no accident. No road closures. Where exactly did you leave I-90? I tried to remember. Around Hardin, I think. Maybe 40 miles east. I'm looking at the traffic reports now. No incidents reported anywhere near Hardin. Rob, are you okay? You sound off." "I'm fine. I'm just tired. The storm was worse than expected. I'll be in Bozeman in an hour." "The load?" I looked at the reefer temperature display. "Compromised. Temperature went above threshold. It's going to have to be disposed of." Tom sighed heavily. "Damn it. Okay. Get it to the destination anyway. They'll have to verify and process the loss. And Rob, when you get there, we need to talk. This is a serious problem." "I know. I'm sorry." I hung up and sat there for a long moment. Then I put the truck in gear and continued toward Bozeman. I made the delivery at 8:47 a.m. The receiving manager took one look at the temperature logs and shook his head. "Yeah, this is all unsalvageable. We'll have to document everything for insurance." They unloaded it anyway. Standard procedure for a compromised load. I watched as they pulled out tray after tray of thawed food. Vegetables that had turned mushy. Ice cream that was now liquid. Prepared meals that had degraded. $42,000 in product loss. All because of a detour that officially didn't exist. I found a motel and crashed for 6 hours. When I woke up, I logged onto my company's system and filed my incident report. I documented everything: the storm, the accident scene, the trooper's directions, the detour on Route 47. 3 days later, I got called into a meeting with my company's safety director. He had my report in front of him, along with what looked like official documentation. "Rob, I've reviewed your report about the detour on Route 47. "Yes, sir." "I've also reviewed weather data, traffic reports, and police logs from that night." He paused. "There was no accident on I-90 near Hardin. There were no road closures. No detours were established by Montana State Police." "I know what I saw." He held up a hand. "I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying that what you experienced doesn't match any official records. Additionally, I had someone check on Route 47. He pulled out a map. "There is no Route 47 in that part of Montana. The county road numbering system doesn't go that high in that region." I stared at the map. He was right. The area where I'd taken the detour showed several county roads, but none numbered 47. "I drove it," I said quietly, "for 6.5 hours, 258 miles. Your fuel logs don't support that. According to the fuel you had when you left Omaha, minus what was in your tank when you arrived in Bozeman, you drove approximately the expected distance for that route, not 200 extra miles. That's not possible. My odometer may have malfunctioned. It happens. GPS tracking shows you following the normal route on I-90 with a signal gap of approximately 6 hours in a remote area. That's consistent with a storm interfering with satellite coverage." I wanted to argue. Wanted to insist that I knew what I'd experienced. But the evidence was all against me. No accident, no Route 47, no physical proof that the Detour had ever existed. What about the load failure? I asked. The reefer unit had a mechanical fault, probably a compressor issue. It's not your fault, but combined with the unexplained gap in your tracking and the inconsistent report, we're going to have to put you on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Administrative leave meant no driving, no income. I'd been with this company for 15 years, never had a serious incident, and now this. For how long? 30 days. Then we'll review and make a determination about your continued employment. I spent those 30 days trying to find Route 47. I drove to Montana, retraced my route as best I could remember. I looked for the exit where the trooper had directed me off I-90. It wasn't there. No exit, no county road, nothing. Just the interstate continuing through empty country. I looked for the gas station with the oil heater, the truck stop with the bright lights. Any physical evidence that what I'd experienced had been real. Nothing. Just normal Montana landscape and ordinary roads. The company let me come back after the 30 days, but with restrictions. Random drug testing, mandatory counseling sessions. They never said it outright, but I could tell they thought I'd had some kind of breakdown. Maybe I did. Maybe the exhaustion and stress caused me to hallucinate the whole thing. Maybe I did follow I-90 all night, and my mind created an elaborate false memory to explain the reefer failure and lost time. That's what I tried to tell myself. But I can't explain the notes. That was 9 years ago. January 19th, 2014. My daughter's 22nd birthday. I never made it home for her party. By the time I got back from Montana, the celebration was over. She forgave me, but something changed between us. Another broken promise, another missed moment. I'm 62 now, still driving, though not as much as I used to. The company kept me on after the investigation, but I never got back the fully trusted status I'd had before. They still assign me runs, still pay me fairly, but there's always that asterisk next to my name in the system. The driver, who lost a load and claimed he took a detour that didn't exist. I don't talk about it anymore. Learned that lesson early on. The few times I tried to tell other drivers about Route 47, I got the same looks. Confusion, concern, pity. Like I was an old man losing his grip on reality. So I stopped mentioning it. Stopped trying to make people understand. Let it become just another story that stays locked inside. But I still think about it. Every single day. Every time I drive through Montana or anywhere in that general region. Every time I see snowfall at night. Every time I encounter a detour sign. Because here's what I can't explain. What I've never been able to explain. The notes. After I got back from that first trip to Montana, trying to find physical evidence of Route 47, I returned to my apartment and sat down to go through my logbook. I needed to make sense of what had happened, needed to find some detail I'd missed that would help prove I wasn't crazy. That's when I found the first one, written in the margin of January 19th's page, in tiny pencil marks, almost invisible unless you looked carefully. The road exists in the spaces between places. You found one of the cracks. I didn't write that, I know I didn't, but it was in my handwriting, or something very close to my handwriting. Small and light, like it had been written in a hurry, but unmistakably similar to my own script. I flipped back through previous pages. Found another note from a week earlier. Don't trust the lights. They're lures, not destinations. And another from the month before. Time moves differently on roads that don't officially exist. I went through the entire logbook. Found 17 notes total, scattered across different dates, all written in that same tiny, light pencil. All in handwriting that looked like mine, but couldn't be mine because I had no memory of writing them. Some were warnings, Some were observations. Some were just fragments that didn't make complete sense. The rest areas appear 3 times. Other drivers are there, but you can't reach them. Your fuel burns, but doesn't deplete. The truck stop sells nothing. I showed the notes to the company psychologist during one of my mandatory counseling sessions. She examined them carefully, then suggested they might be examples of automatic writing, a psychological phenomenon where someone writes without conscious awareness, often during periods of stress or dissociation. It's not uncommon for people under extreme stress to engage in automatic behaviors, she explained. You were exhausted, driving in dangerous conditions, worried about making your delivery. Your subconscious mind might have been trying to process those fears through these notes. It was a rational explanation, scientific, the kind of thing that should have put my mind at ease, but it didn't explain why the notes appeared to be warnings about things I hadn't experienced yet when they were written. The note about rest areas appearing 3 times was dated January 12th. I didn't take the detour until January 19th, unless I'd taken the detour before, multiple times perhaps, and couldn't remember. That thought haunted me more than anything else about this experience. The idea that Route 47 wasn't a one-time anomaly, that I'd been diverted onto it repeatedly, driven those impossible miles over and over, and only consciously remembered it once. I started keeping a detailed journal after that. Every time I drove, I documented everything: routes, times, mileage, fuel consumption, every stop, every observation, looking for gaps, inconsistencies, any evidence of missing time or unexplained detours. Over 9 years, I found 14 instances where the numbers don't quite add up. Trips where I should have arrived sooner based on my average speed and the distance traveled, or where I burned significantly more fuel than the route would normally require. The gaps are never huge, usually just an hour or 2, sometimes only 30 minutes. But they're there, consistent enough that I can't dismiss them as coincidence or error. Each time I find a gap, I go back and check my logbook for that date. And each time, without fail, there's a new note written in that tiny pencil script. Recent ones include, "You've driven Route 47 9 times now, only remembered twice. The between spaces are hungry. They take a little more each time. Eventually, you'll take the detour and not come back." That last one appeared 3 months ago. It's kept me up at night ever since. I've tried to avoid the areas where I think the detours might occur. Changed my routes when possible, declined runs through Montana and Wyoming, stuck to more populated corridors where the roads are busy enough that I'd notice if something was wrong. But you can't avoid every remote stretch of highway. Not in this job. Sometimes you have to take the isolated routes, drive through the empty country, trust that the road ahead leads where it's supposed to lead. Last month I had a run from Denver to Spokane. Should have been straightforward. I-25 north to I-90, straight shot across Wyoming and Montana. I tried to get the dispatcher to give it to someone else, made up an excuse about my truck needing maintenance, but they were short-handed and I was the only driver available. "It's an easy run, Rob," Tom said. "You've done it 100 times. What's the problem?" What could I say? That I was afraid of getting diverted onto a road that doesn't exist, that I might drive for hours through impossible country and lose more time I'd never get back. So I took the run, made it to I-90 without incident. The weather was clear, traffic was light, everything seemed normal. I kept telling myself it would be fine. Whatever had happened 9 years ago was a one-time thing, a combination of bad weather and exhaustion and maybe some kind of mental break. But around midnight, somewhere between Buffalo and Sheridan, Wyoming, I saw the lights. Police lights. Red and blue, flashing in the darkness ahead. My heart started pounding. I slowed down, approaching cautiously. As I got closer, I could see it was an accident scene. 2 cars, one overturned in the median. State police cruisers blocking the lanes. A trooper stood in the road, reflective vest bright in my headlights, waving me to pull over. I considered just driving past him, keeping my foot on the accelerator, ignoring his signals, staying on I-90 no matter what. But you can't do that. You can't ignore police, and maybe this was a real accident. Maybe I was being paranoid. I pulled onto the shoulder. The trooper walked up to my window. Middle-aged guy, professional demeanor, completely normal. "Evening, sir. Highway's closed about 2 miles ahead. Major accident, blocking both lanes. Going to be a few hours before it's clear." Here it comes, I thought. He's going to tell me about a detour. "You'll need to exit at the next ramp and take Route 33 south. It'll add maybe 40 minutes to your trip, but it'll get you around the closure and back to I-90. Route 33. Not Route 47, a different number. "How far on Route 33? I asked. "About 15 miles. Then you'll hit Route 14. Take that west for another 10 miles back to I-90. 25 miles total. Not 50. Not the endless distance of Route 47. "Is the route well marked?" I asked. The trooper gave me a slightly puzzled look. "Yes, sir. Clear signs the whole way. Should be no problem." I thanked him and drove on. Found the exit for Route 33, took it without incident. The route was exactly as he described. 15 miles to Route 14, 10 miles back to I-90. Clear signs, normal roads, no anomalies. I was back on the interstate within 40 minutes, just like he'd said. The rest of the drive to Spokane was completely routine, but when I checked my logbook later, there was a new note in the margin. Route 33 was normal. Route 47 is waiting for next time. I showed that note to my daughter during my last visit home. She's 31 now, married, has a 2-year-old son I barely know because I'm always on the road. We were sitting in her kitchen, drinking coffee, and I just needed to tell someone who might listen without immediately thinking I'd lost my mind. She read the note carefully, then looked at me with those serious eyes she's had since childhood. "Dad, do you really believe this? That there's some kind of supernatural road that keeps trying to trap you?" "I don't know what I believe anymore. All I know is what I experienced. And these notes keep appearing. Have you considered that you might be writing them yourself? Maybe subconsciously. Every therapist I've talked to says the same thing. Automatic writing, dissociative behavior, stress responses. And maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just losing it in my old age." She reached across the table and took my hand. "You're not losing it. But Dad, maybe it's time to stop driving. You've been on the road for almost 30 years. You've earned retirement. Why keep doing this if it's causing you this much stress?" I'd thought about that, often. But driving is what I know. It's who I am. Without the road, without the truck, who would I be? "I'm not ready to stop," I told her. She squeezed my hand. "Then promise me something. If you ever feel like you're taking one of these detours again, if you see Route 47 or anything like it, call me immediately. Don't wait. Don't try to handle it yourself. Just call." I promised, but we both knew it was an empty promise. If I ever found myself on Route 47 again, there would be no cell signal. No way to call anyone. Just me and the endless road and the spaces between places. That conversation was 6 weeks ago. Since then, I've completed 8 runs, all without incident. Normal routes, normal conditions, no mysterious detours. My logbook shows no new notes. Maybe it's over. Maybe whatever happened 9 years ago was a one-time event. And all these gaps I've been finding are just my paranoid mind seeing patterns where none exist. Or maybe Route 47 is just waiting, biding its time, ready to appear the next time conditions are right. Late night, bad weather, exhausted driver. I think about that other driver sometimes, the one I heard on the CB radio that night, the young-sounding guy who was also lost on Route 47, who ran out of fuel while I was still driving. Did he make it out? Or is he still there, in the between spaces, driving the same endless road over and over? I've looked for reports of missing truckers from that time period, but found nothing conclusive. People disappear all the time for all kinds of reasons. And I think about what that other voice said, the older, rougher voice that told me I was in the between, that some roads don't connect to other roads, they connect to spaces between. Between what? Between places, between realities, between existence and non-existence. I don't have answers, just questions that multiply the more I think about them. What I do know is this: I can't talk about it, can't share the experience with anyone who wasn't there. The few times I've tried, I've seen the doubt in people's eyes, the concern, the subtle step back that says they think I'm unreliable. So I keep silent, go about my routes, make my deliveries, maintain my professional reputation as best I can with that asterisk still next to my name. But the silence weighs on me, the inability to process what happened, to share it, to find meaning in it. It sits in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving through empty country under dark skies, I imagine what would happen if I did find Route 47 again. If I saw that trooper directing me off the highway, giving me directions to a road that doesn't exist. Would I take it? Would I follow those directions into the between spaces one more time? Part of me says no, says I'd refuse, would stay on the interstate no matter what the officer said, would keep driving until I found a way past whatever closure he claimed existed. But another part of me, a part I don't like to acknowledge, is curious, wants to go back, wants to understand what that place was, why it existed, what it meant. Maybe that's what the notes are trying to tell me. That curiosity will be my downfall, that eventually I'll take the detour willingly, knowing full well where it leads. And maybe I won't come back. My daughter asks me every few months if I've thought about retirement. Each time I tell her, maybe next year. But we both know I won't retire. Can't retire. Because stopping would mean admitting that I'm afraid, that something broke me, that I can't handle the road anymore. So I keep driving, keep watching for detour signs, keep finding those tiny pencil notes in my logbook that warn me of things I don't want to know. Last week's note said, Route 47 appears when you're needed, not when you expect it. I don't know what that means. Don't want to know, but I keep the note anyway. Keep all of them, actually. I've started transferring them to a separate notebook, documenting each one with the date it appeared and what was happening in my life at the time. Maybe someday someone will find that notebook and understand what I experienced. Or maybe it'll just be seen as the ravings of an old trucker who drove too many miles and lost his grip on reality. Either way, I document it. Because that's all I can do. Bear witness to something that officially doesn't exist, that left no physical evidence, that I can't prove to anyone, including myself. The road is out there. Route 47. The detour that doesn't connect to anywhere real. The space between places where time moves differently and fuel burns forever, and the same rest areas appear over and over like a glitch in reality. It's waiting. I know it is. And one day, when conditions are right, when I'm tired enough and the weather is bad enough and fate decides it's time, I'll see those police lights again. I'll hear those directions to take an exit that isn't on any map. and I'll have to decide whether to follow them or not. I hope when that moment comes, I have the strength to say no, to keep driving on the real road, the mapped road, the road that leads to actual destinations. But I'm not sure I will, because part of me never left Route 47. Part of me is still there, driving through the snow and darkness, watching the miles accumulate, looking for a junction that will never appear. That's the real horror of it. Not that the road exists, but that it's still there inside me, that I carry it with me everywhere I go, that no matter how many normal miles I drive, how many ordinary deliveries I make, I'll always be partly lost in that between space. Some detours you take with your truck, others you take with your mind, and once you've driven through the spaces between places, you never fully return. I'm still driving, still making runs, still documenting the gaps and the notes and the creeping sense that my time on the real roads is limited, because the notes are getting more frequent, and their messages are getting clearer. Yesterday's note said simply, "Soon." I don't know what that means, but I know I'm afraid to find out. Tonight, I have a run from Billings to Bozeman, same route where it all started 9 years ago. The weather forecast shows clear conditions, no storms expected. It should be routine, but I've learned that should be means nothing, that the roads we think we know can become unfamiliar in an instant, that detours appear when you least expect them, or most need them, or when something beyond our understanding decides it's time. I'll make the drive, I always do, and I'll watch for signs of Route 47, the police lights, the trooper with directions, the exit that leads nowhere. And if I see them, I honestly don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll finally have the courage to refuse, to say no to the detour and accept whatever consequences come from ignoring official directions. Or maybe I'll follow them one more time, drive into the between spaces again, see how far the road goes when you have nowhere else to be and nothing left to lose. Either way, I won't talk about it, won't file a report or tell my story or try to make anyone understand. I'll just keep driving, keep finding notes I don't remember writing, keep losing hours I can't account for, until the day I take the detour and don't come back. And then someone else will find my logbook with its tiny pencil notes and wonder what happened to the old trucker who disappeared somewhere between Billings and Bozeman on a clear night with no storms and no reported accidents. They'll search the highways, check the hospitals and motels, look for any sign of me or my truck, but they won't find anything, because I won't be on any official road. I'll be on Route 47, driving through the endless spaces between, where the rest areas appear 3 times and the fuel burns but never depletes, and time moves in ways that don't make sense. I'll be in the between, and I'll stay there, just like part of me has been staying there for 9 years, since that January night when I promised my daughter I'd be home for her birthday, and ended up driving through places that don't exist on any map. The road is waiting, and soon I'll be waiting there too. Forever driving, forever lost, forever caught in the detour that never ends.